don't believe in chemtrails, I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams out of hooks and chills. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading out of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me out of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I step the backs of deceiver, demanding burdens further proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading auto hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, auto hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of hoaxology, suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing, crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death clinger.
Alright, today is 8/18/2024, and we're here to do a bit of a Metascript breakdown. I tried several times to pre-record a video on this because it's somewhat tedious, or it might be looked at as tedious at first, and a lot of you are already apprised of everything I'm going to talk about, but there's more to add to it. So without getting too convoluted, I want to emphasize the big picture here. Robert Deniro was just kicked off Twitter for threatening Trump, and this ties in to the role that he played in several movies and his Trump derangement syndrome displayed outside of the courthouse. So I want to walk through what you see on the screen. It's a mind map labeled Metascript Analysis, Trump Derangement Syndrome, Robert De Niro, and Alec Baldwin. And my contention here is that Alec Baldwin and Robert De Niro are playing these roles of Trump as twins for propaganda purposes, for predictive programming reasons. So let's just start with Baldwin, and then we'll go into De Niro. And again, those of you who have been watching in the last couple of months, Robert De Niro was outside of the Trump courthouse raging against Trump, called him a clown, which we took to be a Joker reference. And these Trump events have been connected to the Joker movie. And so he's arrested on 4/4/2023 as Joker 2 is being filmed outside. And that happened to be Heath Ledger's 44th birthday, posthumous, but significant. Of course, the new Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, the name Phoenix ties into Christ, death, rebirth, all of the above. So for Robert De Niro to be outside of this courthouse is significant, not just because of the Trump derangement syndrome, but because in the Joker movie, he is Murray Franklin, who gets shot in the head on live TV. So let's go ahead and start with that. And then I'll show you how this is all interconnected. So here you have Robert De Niro as Murray Franklin communicating to the Joker about his entire disposition, his anger, his rage, and what does he do?
Piece of a trash! The police, I'm telling you what you...
He shoots him on TV, and the blood splatters on the name Franklin. All over the word Frank, really, but Franklin. So Robert De Niro gets shot on TV by the Joker. So here's your Joker connection. But it gets deeper because the Joker was inspired by Taxi Driver. And Taxi Driver is about a presidential assassin played by Robert De Niro. Now, not only did Robert De Niro play an assassin in this movie that was the template for Joker, but in that role, he inspired John Hinckley to shoot Reagan and James Brady. So let's go ahead and look at these connections first, and then we'll move on from there. First of all, it says Robert De Niro, this is from a few headlines I just grabbed here. Robert De Niro might suffer from the worst case of Trump derangement syndrome. So if you look at that phenomenon, I would say that Baldwin had it really bad, but then the Rust shooting happened, so he gets swept to the side. Now Robert De Niro has it. Second place, most Trump deranged. I would place Stephen King as third. But here's why it's significant that Robert De Niro just gets kicked off of Twitter. Let me pull up some headlines here. So here's a guy who plays the role of a presidential assassin and then later gets shot on TV by somebody who was in that role that he played previously that inspired the real shooting. Now, there was a victim in the real shooting who died. Reagan survived, kind of like Trump survived, but there was a death only 33 years later. James Brady died 33 years later after being shot, and it was from a head wound, and he died on 8/4. So if you look at the top right of the map, I have 8/4 highlighted. Now 8/4 is significant for a few reasons, which we will get into as we proceed. But now, here's where something clicked. Something clicked with me here because I realized, wait, didn't Trump say back in 2016 that he could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it? And this was one of these talking points. He said he wouldn't lose any voters if he walked down Fifth Avenue and shot somebody. Donald Trump could, quote, shoot somebody and not lose voters. That's a pretty significant boast here. If Trump shot someone dead on Fifth Avenue, here he said, I could stand in the middle of Fifth and shoot somebody and wouldn't lose any voters, okay? Mimicking firing a gun with his hand. Now this is significant because as he's being tried for these 34 felonies, and again, 34 is code for 33 at this point. I think we recognize that they've kind of concealed how obvious it is. So you look at a 34, there's a 33 hiding behind it. But that gets dropped and dismissed just a couple days after the shooting on 7/15. Well, the day of the shooting, that's when Alec Baldwin has the trial against him dropped for shooting somebody. Now, Alec Baldwin, of course, famously portrayed a Trump twin on SNL. And when asked, how do you feel about playing Donald Trump on TV so much, he said, it makes me wish for a meteor to hit the White House. So let's connect this. Alec Baldwin is on the Rust movie set, which is a Western. And a big part of this is the West. It's a big term here that we have to note because it connects it all. And he shoots Helena Hutchins, 42, and Joel Souza, who was born on 6/14. Now here's where it gets interesting. He shoots a guy with Trump's birthday, and of course he plays the Trump twin on a movie set for a Western. And he gets off, he goes free. Alec Baldwin's Rust shooting trial is dismissed because certain evidence was withheld at the same time that Trump gets released. So I thought, okay, there's kind of a parallel here. In other words, the real world and then the acting world, the movie world, has kind of synchronized here. And they're both going free at the same time. So it led me to think here, well, there's got to be some significance to Robert De Niro being kicked off Twitter for threatening Trump, considering that De Niro has also played a Trump twin. And how so? Well, we realized while watching De Niro's Trump derangement syndrome on display outside of the Trump trial that a number of his roles foreshadowed the shooting of Trump. Specifically, the role of Robert De Niro as the racist, xenophobic senator in Machete. Now, and we talked about this leading up to the shooting. In this capacity, and we only looked it up because of De Niro's appearance outside the courthouse. So before the shooting, we're like, wait, Robert De Niro played a Trump-like character getting shot at while he's giving a speech. While specifically giving a speech about the problem of immigration and calling immigrants parasites, which is something that Trump did. So here's a direct correlation, because Trump was talking about illegal immigration when he gets shot. And the shooter, according to his Gab postings, was mad about Trump's immigration policy. So here you have some pretty succinct and undeniable examples of predictive programming involving De Niro playing a Trump twin. Then, as the character Murray Franklin getting shot on TV, there you have another foreshadowing and another obvious connection. But again, the connection of De Niro shooting a president. You have it. Travis Bickle, Ronald Reagan. Travis Bickle as Joker shooting De Niro. De Niro, who played a Trump stand-in in Machete. And that was before Trump was even political. So it's a pretty close circle here. Now, I mentioned the 8/4 date because that's when James Brady died, killed by Bickle. 8/4 or 4/8 has figured prominently in this entire narrative. Season 4 finale of The Boys, episode 8, 4/8, is the one called Assassination Run. And they pulled it. They changed the title because the character, the Homelander, who represents Trump, has blood on his face, and there's an assassination in that episode. So you have that direct connection with the 8/4, 4/8 thing. And then I was noting, too, that one of the reasons why I thought there was a significance to the 45 on the side of Trump's hat has to do with a Stanley Kubrick film, Full Metal Jacket, where the character, again, note the name, Joker. The character Joker has a target on the side of his helmet. And Joker in the subtext is JFK, a war photographer in this movie documenting things, but he has the target on the side of his head. And I said, and this is back in 2022, this was 2 years ago. 2 years ago I said, look, this target on the side of Joker's head represents A, Kennedy, and there's allusions to Kennedy and Oswald in that movie, but it's a reference to the future shooting of Trump. I'd already pointed this out. Now, interestingly, again, the 4/7/7/4 shooting at the 4th of July parade that year by Robert Crimo was full of symbolism. Robert Crimo was obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald. That's one thing. He had Lee Harvey Oswald on a newspaper on the wall behind him in this photo that he took. He also went to Trump rallies. So a guy obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald, a sniper, who snipes a 4th of July parade, goes to Trump rallies, and he looks like Waldo from Where's Waldo. So I put out this headline, Where's Oswaldo? Because I said Lee Harvey Oswald had entered the world stage on that day 2 years prior. And so we've seen various references to Lee Harvey Oswald since, like Brock Purdy, the quarterback, was compared to Oswald. But I said, look, the shooter's on the stage, Trump's going to get it. And he's going to get it where? On the 45. Because back then it was just the 45 on his hat. Right where the 45 is, this is Kubrick's signature. This is where he's going to get hit, the right side of his head. So we called it 2 years ago. But it gets deeper. The character Joker reemerges, this is Matthew Modine, reemerges as the evil scientist in Stranger Things. Stranger Things, Season 4, Episode 8, he gets shot and killed. So you have the Homelander, 4/8, and then Stranger Things, this character, 4/8, both of them representing Trump getting shot. So these are deeper connections. And again, this also happened, by the way. This shooting in this movie happens at Portal 116. If you watch the series, you'll know what that means, but 116 is obviously 611 when Trump was shot. A couple of other things that I think stood out here. The 47 on his temple, the 4547, makes a 9/11. So you have a 9/11 connection that we'll readdress here. But getting back to the mind map. We're looking at the Trump deranged Robert De Niro and his connection to this bigger story. So moving forward, he threatens Trump. He gets kicked off of X. So I'm looking at Robert De Niro in the headlines. Kicked off of X. Here's Lipstick Alley. Robert De Niro has been kicked off Twitter for threats. There were multiple tweets that were interpreted as violent threats. It says here, I saw actor Robert De Niro has been suspended from the platform X for violent threats. So I'm looking at Robert De Niro and the different headlines, and it turns out just a few days ago, he started talking about Leonardo DiCaprio. So there's a headline where Robert De Niro says that when he met Leonardo DiCaprio, he thought he was a great kid. Robert De Niro's first impression of Leonardo DiCaprio, that kid had something special. So now, why is this significant? Leonardo DiCaprio, as I mentioned before, is highly significant because of his role in the Titanic. So let's mention the Titanic really quick because it connects to 9/11, and it ties into the more recent movie, Don't Look Up. In the Titanic, he dies. He sinks, as we all know. He's the face of this movie, and the movie's about the iceberg hitting the ship. But as a metaphor, the Titanic represents outmoded, corrupt, crumbling, sinking power structures. The iceberg, in this context, in the way it's described today, often is used to reference climate change. Like, we're not paying attention, and the whole thing's going to sink. The Titanic is a metaphor for the West bringing about its own destruction and possibly the destruction of the entire world. Well, the movie Titanic was filmed by James Cameron, who also brought us Terminator, the Terminator series. And on 9/11, well, let's first bring up the predictive programming. In the Titanic, it splits in two, and it sinks. Each part goes vertical. It has jumpers, like 9/11 jumpers. So there's some visual depictions here of the sinking of the towers and the horror of it all 4 years prior in James Cameron's movie Titanic. So you have the metaphor of the Titanic, the sinking of the West, and the sinking of the World Trade Towers. As the World Trade Towers sink on 9/11, James Cameron is at the site of the sunken Titanic on that very day. And he's in a submersible called the Challenger, the Deep Sea Challenger. And he's filming a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss. So all of this connects to 9/11. If you look at Revelation 9/11, about the angel over the abyss, whose name is, in Hebrew, Abaddon, in Greek, Apollyon, which means the destroyer, or the exterminator, or the terminator. And I think we could add to that the Challenger, the name of the submersible at the site of the sunken Titanic, which is an analogous symbol to the sunken Twin Towers. But it's a foreshadowing. The destroyer of worlds, as Oppenheimer called it, is a reference to the nuke. So the Deep Sea Challenger, the Challenger explosion ties into this symbolically. It explodes at 1 minute 13 seconds. 113 is the date that the One World Trade Tower opened after the twins sank. When you get into the numbers, it's all very consistent. But the 9/11 connection to the Titanic is made here with Revelation 9/11 and James Cameron. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio being the face of that. But now, Robert De Niro mentions DiCaprio. That's one thing. But another thing happened on his birthday. So he's born on 8/17. And on his birthday, he jumped off his yacht. So there's a story here. Robert De Niro celebrates his birthday with, quote, crazy yacht dive. So this has been all over the news. He's on the news right now for jumping off of his yacht and for talking about Leonardo DiCaprio. I think both of these qualify as Titanic references. De Niro's daughter shares the image of him jumping off.
Oh, he's so crazy. Oh my God, are you all right?
So he jumped 30 feet off the side of his yacht into the water. Now, the Titanic has been brought up in the news recently because Celine Dion says she does not endorse Trump using My Heart Will Go On, the Titanic song, at his rallies. So he's been called out for using the Titanic song, and I'm like, why is Trump using the Titanic at the end of his movies? I mean, at the end of his rallies. Well, the Titanic has all these connections to the sinking of the West, which connects to Trump. Trump is Abaddon. He is Abaddon. He is the destroyer. And Robert De Niro called him the destroyer when he was out there in front of the courthouse. He is the Terminator in this context. He's the one associated with the nuke that brings down the West. And we can further solidify this. Just recently, there was a story that came out about the 42 miles. The most significant 42 miles in American politics is the 42 miles between Butler, Pennsylvania, and East Palestine. And so East Palestine, Ohio, is where you had the toxic airborne event looking like a nuke cloud. So you have the correlation here, the pairing of the atom bomb and the head wound. These two things are directly connected. So you can connect the head wound, Antichrist, Abaddon, Destroyer in the Abyss, the Ghosts in the Abyss, again, the name of the documentary that Cameron was filming. These are pretty strong connections. Sinking of the Titanic, jumping off the boat, Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, getting back to this, Don't Look Up is about a space iceberg sinking the Earth as Titanic. And because the Earth is guided by outmoded or this power structure built on greed, capitalism. So you can look at Don't Look Up as a way of representing the idea of the Titanic as a metaphor. We're not ignoring this incoming problem. So it could be a comet that kills the Earth or climate change as a metaphor. But in the trailer they say the comet's going to hit the Earth in 6 months, 14 days. 6/14, Trump's birthday, which again connects to the Rust shooting, where he shoots a guy with Trump's birthday. And of course, the Rust shooting is a Western, and he gets off. So there's this twinning of Trump I'm pointing out, Leonardo DiCaprio, the sinking of the Titanic, all brought in to this picture, tying together the assassination narrative. A couple of other things I could probably bring up here, but the big picture is the twinning of Trump with these Trump deranged characters who are significant in predictive programming for the shooting of Trump. So when De Niro gets kicked off X for making threats, it's all script. It's all part of this ongoing story. A couple of other things here. De Niro's birthday is 8/17, and if you go by the Gregorian calendar, it would make it 8/4. And again, he's a stand-in for Trump, 8/4. James Brady dies on 8/4. This 8/4 connection, the 4/8, with both of these series, The Boys and Stranger Things, that's where Trump gets his head wound. Currently, the Julian calendar is 13 years behind the Gregorian calendar. So this is how you connect Robert De Niro to the Trump head wound. And on his birthday, he sinks like he jumps off a Titanic. And of course, a few days before, plants the seed of the Titanic by invoking Leonardo DiCaprio. All right, I think I've covered most of that. I mean, there's quite a lot more. It's endless. I mean, if you look at the De Niro pointing the gun to his head, and then in Deer Hunter, it's the same symbol. And we've been looking at these things recently in depth. And of course, the Joker connection is undeniable. But I think I've just put together everything here in one place that connects the death threats that De Niro just made to this ongoing narrative, and how these Trump deranged individuals, Baldwin and De Niro, are both playing world stage roles to advance this narrative forward. All right, let me go through your comments. Joined by Hero Paranormal, Clump, Nat Cole, Jamitra 101, Messianic Charlatan. Clump says Dog Days of Summer Programming was great this year. Absolutely. Very eventful. Joined by Roxy W, Portal Complex, Mizell, Ted Stryker, Deprogrammed Truther. Says, yeah, Robert De Niro swooped in from nowhere, but it all fits perfectly already. Yeah, he comes in out of nowhere, and this was before the Trump shooting. Before the Trump shooting, we're looking at Machete. We're watching the video where, look, this guy's giving an anti-immigrant speech just like Trump would, and he gets shot, and then Trump literally does that. Then we find that De Niro plays the role of the assassin and The Assassinated in two movies that are perfectly related. One's based on the other, and one inspired a real shooter who happened to have JFK's birthday, shooting Reagan, and then killing somebody 33 years later, of course, who dies on 8/4. I didn't add 33 to the mind map because it's just too much. It gets, I don't want to overload it, but this is the big picture. Drawn by Dinah Southard, Blood Raven, Rocco Calzone. Let's see, what were the violent threats? I haven't read them yet. Violet Pengon says Deniro was going to be the captain in the Titanic. Didn't know that. Diana says maybe he jumped 33 feet. Yeah, probably did. Robert De Niro turned down a role in Titanic because he had a gastrointestinal infection. Fascinating. So he was going to be in that one. That makes even more sense. Lloyd Miller says, is this live? Yes, it's live. Demetria 101 says, Trump Tower opened on the 45th day of the year. Trump Plaza had 614 rooms. The Plaza's catchphrase is, the best is yet to come. Oswald says, didn't De Niro blame the pokey for his son's autism? I don't know, he might have been anti-pokey at some point. Linda Curtis says, the Godfather Trump is back. Oh yeah, you know, De Niro played the young Don Corleone in one of these Godfather movies. And he was referred to as like a mob boss, a bad mafia don, a bad don, and Abaddon or Abaddon, Apollyon, the Terminator. These things are all correlated. And again, it all ties into the sinking of the nuke in 9/11. Another connection. Who's the Terminator? Arnold Schwarzenegger. On 9/11, there was a billboard, multiple billboards, for Collateral Damage, a movie that was pulled and changed because it had predictive programming for 9/11, and it hadn't been released yet, so it was insensitive following 9/11 to release it. But Arnold Schwarzenegger's face was overlooking Ground Zero. So that represents, again, the sunken Twin Towers correlates to the sunken Titanic, the abyss. So you had the destroyer, the Terminator, looking over the abyss in the form of Arnie on a billboard. Now, I'll see if I can find more information on that, but again, putting it all together, there's no coincidence on the world stage. These things are, this is orchestrated storytelling. So what does it mean? That De Niro, on 8/4 Julian calendar, gets kicked off Twitter for threatening Trump's life, and he jumps off a yacht after invoking the sinking of the Titanic indirectly by mentioning Leonardo DiCaprio, and then Trump playing the Titanic song here. So what are we seeing? My heart will go on, Titanic, tragedy, this guy dies. So the Trump twin dies, symbolically, by invoking the role of Leonardo DiCaprio. And the Titanic sinking, sad song about a death, it's about Trump. In this context, we're seeing the buildup. And then when Alec Baldwin, getting back to Baldwin, who again, he got his charges dropped, the trial was dropped and dismissed, at the same time that Trump has his charges dropped. So Alec Baldwin said, I want a meteor to hit the White House. Well, Don't Look Up is all about this object from space crushing the West. It's all tied in here, but in 6 months, 14 days specifically. Diana says the Terminator billboard was a stage prop. Had to be. Had to be. Yeah, the fact that his birthday correlates perfectly, and that it was on his birthday that he references Trump, and he jumps off the boat. Demetria 101 says, De Niro played CIA in Meet the Parents. He played a casino boss too, like Biff Trump. Okay, good connection there as well. And yeah, so the movie Collateral Damage was pulled, and I'll briefly bring this up because it reiterates everything so much, but it's a 2004 film now. But it was considered to be insensitive because of because it had, I think it had terror attacks in it, involving planes even. But it was delayed. Collateral Damage 2002. Here we go. The movie is classic Arnold. And it was advertised at Ground Zero. It says, in the wake of the tragedy, many movies were delayed so they wouldn't come out during the crisis. Collateral Damage was delayed by 4 months because it featured a terrorist bombing. And the poster, the artwork, the billboard has Arnold's face on it, and it's overlooking 9/11, Ground Zero, literally. So it is like the angel, Abaddon, overlooking the abyss in Revelation 9/11. And it gets even deeper because the Terminator is also invoked here. He is the Terminator, the nuke. But the Terminator series has a new robot called Rev 9. There's a Rev 9. So Revelation 9 is definitely encoded into this. Dark Fate. Rev 9 is a fictional character. Okay, let me see if I've got anything else here in the comments. Yeah, Trump's speech about immigration was a total mirror of the Deniro character as Trump ranting about illegal immigrants as parasites as he gets shot. These are beyond coincidences. What we're doing here is we're examining the Metascript, and we're seeing how, and we're pointing out how, like I often reference, Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey is a reference to 2 into 1, and that's why it shows the eclipse, the 2 zeros. It's like the sun and the moon. The sun represents the news, the waking life, the real world. The moon is the lunar, the entertainment, the subconscious, where our programming goes. And the merging of the two represents the merging of the movie world, the fantasy, with the real world. So when Robert De Niro goes into the, quote, real world by getting on stage and saying, Trump is the destroyer, Trump needs to be stopped, yeah, that's merging all of his fictional universe roles with this real world event. And they've merged the two, and the public lives in a movie. The public lives in the fake news universe. It's like the Marvel universe. But the fake news universe is the prefabricated historical events that they play in the form of perception management, PR stunts, psyops, hoaxes, whatever you want to call it, simulations. So the simulated events, the pre-scripted events, are where they merge the fake with the real and bend our reality, or bend the news, and create our consensus worldview. They write our history in advance, acted out on the world stage. And what we think of as news events, like De Niro going crazy, is actually part of the show. Now, there's quite a lot more. Let me go ahead and bring this up. We're talking about the significance of De Niro getting kicked off Twitter for threatening Trump. He called him a tyrant recently. Robert De Niro suspended from Twitter for threats. This is from Club India. These were interpreted as violent threats. This was confirmed across multiple posts. De Niro expressed strong opposition to Trump's re-election. He compared Trump to Hitler and said there'd be severe chaos if Trump returns to power. Musk argued that Trump had already served for 4 years and bore no resemblance to Hitler. I'm trying to find the exact quotes. Here we go. His language towards Trump and his supporters has been strong, but it's more in the realm of political critique rather than direct threats. His comments about Trump's character and actions are not usually personal threats. They're personal attacks, but says he was... I'm trying to find if there's any specific quotes here. Don't have any quotes yet, but we will. But the main thing here about this hullabaloo, as Jurassic Liars called it, is to draw attention to the 8/4 date. Again, 8/4, James Brady dies. 8/4 or 4/8, Joker / Matthew Modine dies. Or the Boys season finale Assassin Run is connected to the Trump event. So we're looking at De Niro as a Trump twin in these movies by playing these predictive programmed roles. Same thing with Alec Baldwin, who literally played Trump on SNL. So you can see these overlapping narratives, but it's actually pretty concise and pretty straightforward. And I have a lot more to say on this, but I just thought, the Trump statement about how he could shoot somebody and get away with it came to mind when Baldwin got away with it. So you had these parallel events, and then he goes free and Trump goes free at the same time. So if that's a twinning, and these are parallel stories, then there must be some significance to Robert De Niro jumping off of his boat on an 8/4 date, or on the Julian calendar. And of course, the Titanic being played at the Trump rally, way too obvious to decode. I mean, this is not even all that occulted, it's pretty blatant. Dirk Zink says it's the Truman Show all over again. Shakespeare said all life is a stage. You know something else about Truman is President Truman, under which the atom bomb happens. And the Truman Show could be a reference to the fact that when they put that prop out there on the world stage, when they introduced the God construct, the war God construct of the atom bomb, they dragged us all into a movie. I mean, think about it. Every world leader now has access to this ultimate power that would ensure mutual destruction, that could ignite the atmosphere, that could destroy the world. They introduced the end times and put us into an end times movie. With the introduction of that, we got dragged into a Truman Show. A movie enhanced reality. I mean, I don't know, this war concept. We talk about war and how fakeable these big events are. And I'm not here to say there's no violence in the world or people don't die. I mean, I know firsthand, violence, death. I was a decedent transporter and embalmer, so I'm not in denial about death or violence. None of that shocks me in the slightest. However, there's a point where real ends and fake begins. There's a point where we exited the world of real conflict and violence, and they supplanted it with mind war. Look up the Mind War PDF by Michael Aquino, the Satanist. And if you look at Michael Aquino, Temple of Set, Anton LaVey, you go right headfirst into the movie enhanced reality, psyops. It's all there. And the explanation for it. Because ultimately, as co-founder of the Church of Satan, Kenneth Anger said, the movies are going to constitute the pageantry of Mystery Babylon in the New World. That this is the new religious paradigm, that movies play an intrinsic role in it. Yeah, Truman is the 33rd president, drops the nuke. And in Newsbenders, they claim that it was with the advent of the nuke, they decided that it would make more sense to de-escalate this way. That's a rationale. Hey, we're going to destroy ourselves if we don't take control of our impulse to go to war and conquer each other. And so they had this rationale for bending the news. It's for our own good. It's a benevolent dictatorship, in a sense. All right, we already have a good number. Looks like 142 people have showed up. I'll go ahead and open up phones in case anyone has anything to add. I know there's a lot here to throw down, but what I picked up on here is a series of threads invoking the sinking of the Titanic, sinking of Trump, threats against Trump, the assassination of Trump, and the Trump deranged syndrome. And these twins, these individuals who hate Trump so much, are actually representing Trump in various aspects. The assassinated Trump, the assassin of Trump, the shooter, and of course, Alec Baldwin getting off at the same time Trump does just kind of reiterates this, and it kind of gave me this clue. Dirk Zink says that is insanity. This is all pretty much what we talk about here, is the fact that our history is written in advance and acted out through psyops. That's it. That explains predictive programming. That explains why on 7/13 Trump is shot and thine ear shall bleed is out, big movie poster with a bleeding ear. Captain America comes out, where Harrison Ford, who's born on 7/13, is nearly assassinated in the trailer in a theater. So it's like Ford Theater, kind of an Abe Lincoln reference. But 7/13, his birthday, also connects to Julius Caesar's birthday, 7/13, and Trump was Julius Caesar in Shakespeare in the Park, Lend Me Your Ears, where he's murdered on stage. Again, lots of overlapping dates here that are highly significant. Linda Curtis says the scrying mirror blurts the line. Yeah, your iPhone, the smartphone, is the monolith. It's truly the monolith that Stanley Kubrick represented. In fact, it's such a significant symbol that at ground zero, overlooking the sunken towers, is the monolith Hilton Hotel. The Millennium Hotel, the Millennium Hilton, is quite literally a big black monolith based on Kubrick's movie. And it's overlooking ground zero, right there. We've talked about this thing a few times because of its significance being at ground zero and being a monolith standing there, because in 2001 Space Odyssey, when they uncover the monolith, it actually looks just like this image here. So I'll pull up an image of it just for reference. You're looking at ground zero, and amidst the wreckage overlooking it is this big, ominous black monolith building. You see that there? And now I'll go ahead and connect this with Chartword. And chartword.com has done some great breakdown of Kubrick's work. He's the one who found that Full Metal Jacket's Joker, again Matthew Modine, is quite literally JFK. Now here is a scene from 2001 A Space Odyssey where they have this big pit and they're excavating the monolith. And if you look, the monolith standing there amidst the debris is highly reminiscent of the debris at the 9/11 cleanup site, overlooked by the Millennium Hilton, which is a big monolith. Now, one more point here, since we're on the topic, and you cannot unsee this. The Hilton logo has the Twin Towers built into it, and along with the Twin Towers, you can clearly see the flight path of the planes where they hit the towers. So it's all encoded into it. I'm catching up on your comments. Elephant Tusk says, I tried explaining to a military veteran, I'm a military veteran, that the Trump incident was fake. I told him about background people. He asked me if I've ever been shot at before. He said, if you don't, you don't react like you think. No, we have plenty of examples. We have so many examples. Millions. Just go to Twitter. Go look up Twitter Chicago on a Friday night and just refresh. What are you going to see? Shootings. And whenever guns go off, people run. They stampede. The fact that nobody moved is highly indicative of this being a drill, a simulated news event. Lloyd says, William Buckley called us men who hear voices in the air, waders in the fever swamp. You know, I had a comment from someone yesterday, and they were kind of mocking the idea that we're looking at numbers and symbols and narratives and actors. And I'm like, well, the thing is, we're looking at the infrastructure of media and how it actually works. And meanwhile, those mocking us or who don't get this are still entertained by the shadows on the wall. You lack the intellectual and moral high ground because by default, you're part of the info war. You're part of the problem. Slick Rick says, how do we know if the real Trump takes the head wound? Good question. And I have no impression whatsoever. There's no, I don't think it makes any sense that they would really shoot somebody, but I have no reason to think that they're going to actually shoot somebody. Elephant Tusk says, I tried explaining about the photographer. It falls on deaf ears. Yeah, you cannot wake up blue pillars. You can't. It's above their level of education. It's that simple. They haven't been educated about what media is. They've been mal-educated. It's that simple. It really is. That's why I say we can't bother with Trutherville because they're programmed. Normiville, programmed. The best we can do is aggregate those who have already stepped outside of their box, who have already undone the epistemological inversion, which is what the screen represents. When you say, hey, this screen is another perception, another sensory apparatus, and I can perceive the world at a distance through this. I am omniscient. I can see anything anywhere and be super informed. No, you could only be misinformed. You don't get more informed by accepting the screen as an authority, and everybody has. That's a philosophical crisis if you think about it. It would be like if everybody in the world interpreted their experience through Dianetics or any religious cult. If everybody's on the same sheet about a religion, then we all have the same worldview, the same filter. And there's a problem with that. The problem is that the filter gives you a consensus version of reality that doesn't align with the real thing. It contains augmentation, superstitions, miracles, myths, etc. And the psyops, the simulated events, like January 6th, for example, these are contemporary myths that will go down in the history books as the way it really happened. And that is true, what Lloyd said, that we are essentially hearing voices in the air, waders in the fever swamp. We will be relegated to the dustbin of history. They will delete our content because they already wrote history. They don't need our input. The fake news events end up in the history books. The truth doesn't really get included. Except for now, we have something else. This is a big shift. The fact that we're creating a separate branch of media, the parallel media, means that we're no longer going to be censorable. That we can go ahead and let them have their lies. That's why I say parallel. We're not trying to stop them from lying. We're creating a parallel account for those who can see. We're examining their lies and understanding them instead of merely believing them. Lloyd says, is ear part of the head? Well, here's the thing. The crosshairs were put at the very point where we said. And so he turned his head, but it would have hit the 45. The ear is on the head. I mean, if you look at the Revelation connection, it's all there. It's a miracle. His ear healed so fast. He said, oh yeah, my ear just healed. It's like I'm a fast healer. No, that's miraculous. It went from top of his ear being chopped off. And I should probably play this really quick. There was a show called The Ugly Americans where there's a sniper who shoots the ear off of a politician. Here it is. Ugly Americans predicted Trump assassination. And this is from 2010, the same year of Machete.
Now let's drop the ball and count down to the end of days.
And farewell, General Twain, Bone Reaper.
10, 9, 8.
I dare say, I hardly knew ye.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Again, we're looking at Ugly Americans, and you have the shooter aiming right now. Is a countdown, and
For his heart, Lily.
shoots his ear off. Very interesting connection. Diana Southhart says, Tim, will you consider interviewing a CNN producer? I sent an email. Yeah, I'll be reading emails after this live stream, and I'll be responding with tracking numbers for all orders, etc. Lloyd says, monolith equals monolithic thinking. Yes, monolith equals the new monotheism, the monolithic worldview, the worldview monopoly. Think about the mono I on your money. It's all about the Tower of Babel, which is what the pyramid on the money represents. The pyramid with the 1776 below it is a reference to the year the Tower of Babel's construction begins, 1776 AL. Anno Lucius, the year of light, it's the Masonic calendar. 1776 AD, when America begins, correlates to that because America's Babylon. 1776 AD was 5776 on the Masonic calendar. 5776 is the height in inches of the pyramid in Giza. So you have a 1776 connection to the World Trade Tower, which is 1,776 feet high. So the World Trade Tower, the pyramid of Giza, the pyramid on the dollar, and the Tower of Babel are all correlated. So the idea of the monolith is the one world unity, as we have right now the one world unifying concept of outer space, where now man is united with one language, the internet, and one mission, becoming multiplanetary, ascending into the heavens like the Tower of Babel. And it's at this point in the story that the Tower of Babel falls. And this is the Titanic sinking. That's this narrative that we have been observing. And I think there's a connection here, a contiguous narrative between the sinking of the Titanic, the sinking of the Twin Towers, and the sinking of the ISS, which is yet to come. But collectively, it'll represent the fall of the West. The movie ISS has the ISS falling after Russia and America fight on board and down below, and they nuke the world. But it's a contiguous story here. Again, from the abyss of outer space, the abyss below, and then the ground level Twin Towers sinking. It's one big story. Dirk says, I find almost all people around me are programmed. I cannot wake them up. Why would you? I wouldn't go knock on a neighbor's door and ask them to convert to a different religion or to cease believing in a religion they have that I don't agree with. Like, I'm not here to proselytize. I think it's amusing that I have proselytizers from the other side. Like, oh, how dare you say the news is lying? You have people defending the official story of various events here as though they're going to convince me. I'm like, you're not getting paid by CNN. They're not going to send you a thank you letter for defending their honor. You're defending lies. There's no reason for that. These are media advocates. There's no reason to try to convert them. You're better off, in my opinion, we are better off aggregating those who can already see. We don't have to waste time programming people. And a lot of people think they're skeptical because they're slow to believe what we're saying. Like, oh, you guys don't know. You guys are just apophenics. You have apophenia. You're just connecting dots that aren't really there. And what they're really doing is admitting that they accept the authority of the screen. Again, media advocates. And media advocates don't have the intellectual high ground. They are low information believers. Ask them. Ask any low information believer, hey, how many people died at Crocus? They don't know. Ask them, do you believe that the Crocus shooting happened? They'll say, yeah, I saw the headlines. So you know a shooting happened, but you don't know the details. We know the names of the victims, the shooters. We know who reported it. We know the dates. And we go so deep into the weeds that we are highly informed about it, yet we walk away not believing it. So why is it that the people who have the most information believe the least? And those who have the least information believe the most? That's the epistemological inversion. That's the philosophical error. That's where the misinformed don't get it. So don't waste your time trying to convert the misinformed, the believers in the world state cult. It's a waste of time. You cannot deprogram somebody else. They have to self-deprogram. It has to begin at the level of the individual's perception. Are you the final arbiter of what you believe? Or is CNN? Or is Fox? Or some blue check? And then you have the truthers who are like, yeah, the Trump shooting was real but fake as well because it wasn't what they said. The media lied. It's a second shooter. It's an inside job. Even Tucker Carlson, he's out there saying it's an inside job as though that's some kind of controversial statement. No, it's predictable. Second shooter narratives are red herrings. So people who don't believe the news have their own version to believe. Alt media is alt lies, but it's part of the same lie world order infrastructure. Anybody in alt media chasing second shooters is either too mind controlled and duped and brainwashed, or they're actively guardrailing it. They're actively controlling the narrative. Like someone like Tucker Carlson is obviously a mind control operative, maintaining a guardrail. He would never talk about this being fake. They're just not allowed to. Eddie F. says, we can't make sense of the world. Maybe you can. I can. I don't know where you come from saying we can't make sense of the world, because 20 years ago, everybody here believed what was on the news. You believed the media was reporting stuff even if you thought they were lying. It wasn't until post-2012 that the understanding of crisis acting and mass casualty events was even close to being understood. And it wasn't until the last 5 years that the Metascript concept really came together and became clear to us. And it wasn't until the last year that we made the distinctions between concurrent programming, predictive programming, and the reinforcement programming. So we're arriving at a clearer and clearer understanding. We're disabusing ourselves of misconceptions like synchromysticism, Mandela effects, all the trutherisms, orthodoxies. So as we get a greater understanding and a clearer methodology, we put out Autohoaxology 101. We have these axioms that really make sense of things. There's no reason to say we can't make sense of the world. We certainly can. That's what we're doing. That's why I'm really tired of simulation theorists. They're saying, no, nothing's real, nothing's fake. The human mind is impotent when it comes to knowing the facts of reality. It's like maybe yours is. Mine's not. My mind's not blown like Joe Rogan. Oh, these things are so unbelievable. We must be in a simulation. My mind is blown. It's like, no, my mind is not blown. I am underwhelmed by the low quality propaganda that people are falling for. Estevan says, a parallel for those who can see. Exactly. The parallel media is for those who can see. There has never been a deprogrammed class. There's never been a platform for the deprogrammed or for skeptical media. Think about that. Mainstream is non-skeptical of its own claims. Alt media is non-skeptical of its own claims. So they are skeptical and non-believers of each other's content, but they're not skeptical outside of their ideological box. So it doesn't work. We are creating a platform for true skeptics, this off-world stage perspective. What's happening says, I realize while there are no whistleblowers in the cult, the Bible says the slaves should love their masters. They're content with their place in the system. Yeah, absolutely. They're content, it's compartmentalized, and also nobody's dying. So let's take, for example, a school shooting. Let's say we're going to stage a school shooting to advance various agendas and change people's attitudes. You're not going to recruit a bunch of MAGAs. You're not going to find a bunch of gun fetishists or Kyle Rittenhouses. Yeah, I'll fake a school shooting so we can make Americans feel bad about guns. You're going to recruit people who are ideologically copacetic with the goal. You're going to choose leftists. And you'll say, hey, so many people, and this is the other part, the programmed are one group of people. The programmers are another group, but the programmers are also still programmed. So those who are recruited to fake a school shooting, whether it's actors, whether it's the people who are in the police department, the EMTs, hospital workers, and politicians, they're all in agreement that this is for the greater good. If we simulate this event, we can stop the real thing. So for them, one lie saves lives. It's a simple calculation here. Hey, we don't like guns anyway because we're libs. And if we fake this event, we can stop future school shootings. They see themselves as heroes. They certainly feel like I would imagine, that they're serving a greater purpose. And the fact that nobody's dying is a huge part of it. It's just propaganda. Those people who have a hard time believing that nobody dies at these events are usually following controlled opposition agents who say, oh yeah, people did die. Or they throw this stupid argument out, oh, they don't care about you. You think they wouldn't just shoot people? No, they wouldn't. Your NDAs would be invalid if illegal acts were happening. If real deaths were occurring, those NDAs would be invalid. You would have a bunch of whistleblowers. Moreover, it would turn a propaganda event, a standard event, into a war crime. So no. Dinah Southside said, people have to be able to reconsider what they believe, understanding they could be wrong, but pride and ego stops most. Yeah, pride, ego, fear, and the fact that most of what people are programmed to believe in comes with a lot of fear attached to it, emotion. And that's why they attach the crisis actors, because if you're emotionally attached to it, to detach from it, you're going to bring those emotions back up. People used to say, what would you say to the families of the victims? They get all morally righteous about it. And it's like, the real victims are the millions of children going through hyper-realistic school shootings, where they have to go through these drills, where they have to do duck and cover drills. The school shooting drills are the new duck and cover. It's programming. So whose side are you on? The programmers with their MK Ultra rollout, or the deprogrammed? If you're still advocating for fake dead kids, you're on the side of the programmers. You're basically choosing evil. You're on the wrong side of the screen. Auto hoaxers, media skeptics, those who suspend judgment and don't lend their belief and energy to the Psywar, yeah, we have the moral high ground here, just making that clear. Ms. L says, pride is one thing keeping folks from reconsidering. I think their lives are so busy they can't consider to stop and consider it's lies, it's too much. Fascinating. Is it too much for them? What do we call this? I think there's something going on. It's this NPC-like attitude. But this is what characterizes blue pillars, and it's an insulation against the horrors. Because here's the difference between us. After 10/7, I was driving around with a friend, and they said, "Did you hear about the 40 decapitated babies?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I did. It's terrible. How do you like the weather today?" And instantly we talked about the weather. So in this blue pillar's mind, 40 dead babies, nice weather, equal weight, equally irrelevant, equally meaningful. I mean, equally meaningless. These are like just words, not attached to anything objective. But the difference between us is I changed the subject because I don't care about fake dead kids. This person believes in the fake dead kids, and they allowed me to change the subject like that. What does that say about them? It says they are apathetic. They believe in nukes, mass shooters, they believe in the horror show, but they're apathetic to it. They're comfortably numb. That's why you can't reach them, because they are traumatized. The truthers are even worse, because they've been given alternative lies that make things even more nightmarish and scary, to where they're scared of cell phone towers and clouds and immigrants. They're just filled with phobia. Fear is the mind killer. It gets them to react emotionally. It's another Dune quote. There's so many great Dune quotes. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. That's Frank Herbert. And then he has this other quote, which I think is even better and more relevant for what we talk about here, where he's describing the regular people. So my blue pill friend, who wasn't all that perturbed about the 40 dead kids, this is what Frank Herbert said: "They are not mad. They are trained to believe, not to know. Belief can be manipulated. Only knowledge is dangerous." So you're not going to deprogram a believer. That's the difference. The media skeptic is not a believer. We're fomenting a culture of disbelief. I don't want to be surrounded by believers. We'll be outnumbered. If we let chemtrail believers on the raft, we'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1 by hysterics who are terrified of cirrus clouds. We can't have that. They're programmable. They can be told that the clouds are filled with nanobots, and they'll believe it. They'll believe anything. Whatever they're told by the appropriate blue check, they're dupes. Trutherville believers are dupes. People who believe in false flags are dupes. People who think that people really died and cried are fools. They're Truman in their Truman shows. Truman is a fool. He is the fool from the tarot card. Ignorant at the beginning of knowledge, beginning his path to awakening. So in the tarot card, it's a 22 card pictorial journey of a soul's awakening, from recognizing himself as a fool, I know nothing, so I'm taking a plunge off the cliff, to the universe card, where they understand that the individual has a place in the macrocosm. So it's a trip, it's a journey, the fool's journey. And most people are at the point where they've been rendered into the place of the fool, like Truman, but they haven't quite taken the plunge. Pete Shea says, Tim is always wondering what's going on the other side of the infinite plane. On the bottom? I think we are the bottom. Diana says, I think autohoaxology should be a subject for children in 2nd and 3rd grade. It won't happen for this reason. The education system is designed not to, education is a thing. They are learning a lot of things. However, it's giving them a structure for interpreting the worldview from the state's perspective. You're trained to adopt the worldview that the worldview monopolists create and to accept the authority of the screen. This is not something you can fix. In fact, I would argue that you shouldn't even reach out to people who are still being educated. If someone's in school, I wouldn't even bring it up, because you have to, I think, understand the box before you can get out of it. Everybody goes through the programming. Deprogramming is a new thing. We are the only deprogrammed. And that's not an exaggeration. We are the only deprogrammed. We're the only ones who can claim it. If you're a true believer in the MSM lies, you're programmed. If you're a true believer in Woketown or Trutherville nonsense, you're programmed. Until you've understood that this is a false model and that the news presents a worldview augmented with special effects and lies and psyops and perception management, until you understand that and see it from that perspective, you're programmed. It is that simple. And then the programming class consists of people at various levels of deprogramming, but only specific to that area where they're working. Like a crisis actor at a school shooting isn't going to know about fake space. You see how that works? You wouldn't have everybody equally in the know. Like there's this common refrain by moon landing believers who say, oh, there's no way they could have faked Apollo 11. There were 400,000 contractors. Somebody would have talked. What makes you think all 400,000 would be in the know? That's absurd. If you've been in the military, you know about security clearances. You know, I was in a unit. I couldn't go to certain places on the field because I wasn't given the clearance to see the PAC-3 missile system. Everything's compartmentalized. So the compartmentalization is easy to understand if you look at a movie set. There's a movie being filmed. You walk up to the set, you see the crew, you see what's going on. Does anybody there know what's going on in the culmination scene where the main actor is talking to the other main villain and it's all about to go down? Like, no, these little details are only known to the director and the actors. Like, this is compartmentalized, and everything is like this. You know, corporations, the military, police departments, there's levels of in the know. Like, even police departments have PSYOP departments. Pete Shea says, I wonder if Tim agrees with John the Bond that no one dies in any wars. I'm open to the idea that ever since the advent of the nuke, they have replaced a real-world conflict with simulation, with staged events, closed movie sets, psyops, and the technology's there, the fake ability's there, it's all there. But I'm not saying that violence isn't real. Although school shootings are fake, we can categorically debunk certain things. We can categorically say school shootings are fake, mass school shootings are fake, Islamic terrorism, fake. I mean, if you can dispute this, please point out the school shooting that was real. Please, we would like to know. Show us one that isn't part of the PSYOP entertainment complex's body of fake shootings that all take place within a fictional universe. But I certainly think that now they are bending our history ever since they've consolidated media and got us all on the same sheet. Mankind has been made to kneel before this big war god, the nuke. Mankind was dragged to the moon. Mankind experienced 9/11. These are collectively experienced events that create our worldview. But they haven't done this forever, obviously. Dwayne Obith says the book Dune is better than the films, though I'd pick the Lynch rendition if I had to choose a favorite. I haven't watched them yet, but I want to. Pete Shea says knowledge can be manipulated too, Tim. I would disagree. You know, I make a distinction here between knowers and believers, between knowledge and belief, because the world of believers is a world of dependents who cannot verify their beliefs. They're just competing over who has the best ones. It's a world of darkness. Knowledge, information, more information about any of these events tends to debunk the events. So when you examine these events closely, like, I can't believe in it, but it happened, but the version that the public believes is fake. So we are not saying that reality is fake. This isn't simulation theory. We're saying that the worldview that is promulgated to the news is a simulation. And I would also add, too, simulation theory, and I have my sights on it. You know, I was talking about synchromysticism before as an erroneous interpretation of predictive programming, but I'm saying now that simulation theory has likely been planted here deliberately for the sole purpose of hiding the simulated news. So you have some people that are smart enough to figure out the news is simulated. Let's throw them a curveball, make them think, oh, you've seen through the universe. You've ascended above the lemmings. You're better than the normies because they're just looking at coincidences, and you know it's not a coincidence. You have ascended. You're a mystic. Like, no, that's not what happened. You haven't transcended reality. You've seen the simulation presented, but that doesn't debunk the real thing. We live in a simulation-enhanced reality. Another way to understand it is to think of it in the context of a cult, like the microcosm of what we're living in. A doomsday cult. If you grew up in a bunker, like in a doomsday cult, and you were told certain things, you would be easily misled by your parents, by the cult members. If you're born in a doomsday cult, you're given a filter through which to interpret the world. And obviously, we can tell from outside of the bunker that they're not really in the end times, that they've been programmed to believe these things in order for them to be controlled. How many doomsday cults and how many false prophecies have wasted people's lives in fear, causing them to fear everything? That's standard. Well, that's what we live in collectively. If you believe the science, you must therefore believe that climate change means we are in the end times. That's a scientifically held belief, and they'll laugh at the biblical concept of the end times, which the other side, the non-progressive side, tends to lean towards that. Violet says people don't want to be the group labeled crazy. And if they're not crazy, yeah, that's another part. They've already set the stage that if you go against the grain, it's because you're mentally ill or you're crazy. The fact of it is, if you believe the consensus worldview, you're mentally ill. You are. It's true. You've been lied to, you've been traumatized, you've been given this toxic bond with mass media. It's not a healthy state of mind. You're subject to placebo effects, nocebo effects, not to mention all the various bigotries and phobias that they just disseminate 24/7. But there was this book I read by Eric Fromm that asks this really good question. It's called The Sane Society. And what he asked basically was this: if society itself is sick, what does it mean to be sane in such a society? Social psychologist Eric Fromm's seminal exploration of the profound ills of modern society and how to overcome them. And what I'm saying here is that the conformity to the blue pill results in apathy, because you couldn't possibly live in this world with all these fears and maintain a coherent worldview. So it serves you to embrace the bliss of ignorance, although it's not really blissful if you look at how eminently triggerable the believers are. That is not a state of bliss. Diana says, most young people I work with are under 30. They don't believe in moon landings. See, that's heartening. That's good to know. But the damage control line coming down is, and Fly Me to the Moon exhibits this. Yeah, we faked the moon landing to trick the Russians. No, Russia faked the first man in space. We faked the moon landing because space travel isn't real. Pete Shea says, not the underside, the other side of the over there beyond. Yeah, I'm very curious about what's beyond the model of the world. But right now, my focus isn't the shape. I think it's more about open or closed system. And actually, I kind of arrived at this a few years ago. It's not about flat or round. It's about open or closed. The closed model is the globe. And it's a closed system, meaning this is the official version, can't add to it. And not only that, but being closed means scarcity. It means we're running out of room, too many people, we're running out of air, it's getting too hot, it's going to burn up and die, it's fragile up there in space, and it's precariously balanced on the edge of total disaster if we don't change our ways. So they give us a closed system for a reason. It has an expiration date, and they constrain and limit time, end times, and space, geography. But I'm more interested in the world view, which is a closed system. The closed system of the mainstream mediated version of things. It's closed to any views that include special effects and psyops and lies. I mean, think about that. Mainstreamers and alternative people live in a world where they accept as truth the framework, the parameters, and anything outside of that is ignored. I'm constantly butting heads with truthers who say, oh, people did die at this event. It's a false flag. I'm like, no, you're not including in your assessment the fact that media isn't reporting these events, but they're producing them. It's a huge blind spot, but they exist in that closed box. So what's more important than exiting the globe model and seeing what's beyond Antarctica is exiting the world stage model and having the off-world stage perspective. We have to do this first. And until we do this, the shape of the world, more land, whatever, is immaterial because nobody's going to be invested in debunking the globe model or the concept of the world we've been given. There won't be enough people even doubting it. And a problem with the whole flat versus round thing, of course, is flat earthers are stuck on models. They think, oh, we have a model, and our model's better than yours. No, both of your models are premature, and the model's not the territory. Dirk says, one of my good time friends called himself the foremost expert in all the world of chemtrails. I told him he was, yeah, that's funny. I told him he was no different than Tucker Carlson, and he was trusting of the BS. While chemtrails don't exist, it's a myth similar to climate change. And the dupes who fall for that don't understand that leaked government documents do not constitute evidence. We have a new auto-hoaxology axiom that I'll be publishing here later today or tomorrow that simply states that leaked government documents need to be treated as movie props. And they're there on purpose for those who don't trust the news, but who are a counter. They're always like the counter to the establishment news, and they'll believe whatever's the opposite. It's like, I don't believe you when you say it to my face, but I'll believe the leaked documents. It's like, it's the same source. Don't you understand reverse psychology? It's a marketing tactic. One tactic of marketing that they use is discovery. Do your own research. That's a marketing tactic. Discover for yourself the joy of this. Discover for yourself how much you'll like this particular brand of perfume. It's always about discovering for yourself this or that product. Do your own research. Because when you discover for yourself, you do your own research, you're more inclined to arrive at agreement. You're more likely to accept it if you're someone who doesn't like to be spoon-fed. So mainstreamers are spoon-fed, whereas like they just eat whatever's handed to them. The alternative people, though, they don't eat it unless it's thrown on the floor. They eat the breadcrumbs. They have to assemble it themselves. But it's the same thing. It's just a regurgitated version of the mainstream, enhanced a bit. Dwayne Obith says, Judy Wood's theories can be considered an MSM Plus version of the events. Instead of planes, it was lasers or mini nukes, guard-railing the truthers so they continue chasing after red herrings. You nailed it. Judy Wood is MSM Plus. And the way this works is the big worldview, the big box, is MSM, mainstream mediation. Not just media, but mediation in general. And if you don't believe that, you should step away from the screen and get more facts from outside of that narrow perspective. Because the monolithic worldview is a product of selective views, selectivity, selectively framing. It's not just what they show you, but it's what they leave out. That's a huge part of it. So you need more information. So you should be stepping out of the box and not just believing what they say at face value. This is called the negative route, the subtractive, MSM minus, skepticism, suspending judgment. Conspiracy theorists are not skeptics. Truthers are not skeptics. They say, everything on the screen happened and I'm so outraged about it, but they're lying. There must be more to it. So the planes did fall, people did die, but it wasn't Islam. It was direct energy weapons from the deep state sent by Israel. So now they've accepted the main story, but now they've also accepted a whodunit narrative, and they've added on a bunch of stuff. So I call it MSM Plus. MSM is an edifice of lies. MSM Plus is putting a bunch of BS on top of the lies. So these people believe lies, and you believe bullshit and lies, and we believe nothing. Who's better off? Honestly, normies are better off than truthers. Skeptics are better off than both because we're not programmed. Pete Shea says, David Weiss knows that Judy Wood is the answer, and he knows that the Earth's surface is stationary and extended flat. No, David Weiss is a liar. He lied to me. He said he saw the planes hit the building. He said, don't call it fake, because he told me he had a friend who has to see a psychologist every day because of the bodies hitting the ground. No, he's a known liar. The fact that he would advocate for Judy Wood is on brand. He's an MSM Plus pusher, as are all establishment-friendly truthers. The guy was on InfoWars. You don't get on InfoWars if you're a skeptic. Auto hoaxers are not allowed. The auto hoaxer perspective has been pushed back against, not by mainstream because they don't have a clue. It's been truthers who've been against it. The first time that I decided I was an auto hoaxer was when Paul Joseph Watson, who worked for Alex Jones, banned me from a live stream because I was calling an event fake. He said, those of you who call it fake without having waited for the victims to grieve, you're not allowed here anymore. Auto hoaxers are not welcome here. Like, we're right all the time, and you're wrong all the time. And we realize, hey, it's not a coincidence. They're not wrong, they're lying. They're not wrong by accident. They are strategically lying to conceal the truth. Joined by Thirst for Truth, Observing Reality. Jessica Lynn says, if they can convince us this is a simulation, then they have you to accept. Yeah, simulation theory, Mandela effect, mysticism that says retreat from the world, all these things take you away from a true understanding, and it gives you a false explanation, a false understanding. That's why I was critical of synchromystics, because many people who look into it say, I don't care about the news, it's all fake, but they are interested in these interesting, like these intriguing coincidences, these alignments, these synchronistic alignments between, hey, this movie foreshadowed that. That is mystical. That's a synchronicity. I'm closer to truth than the normies who just believe whatever they see. No, you're not seeing clues that it's a dream. You're actually seeing the infrastructure deception, how they entrain our minds. You just replace the word entertainment with entrainment. They are synchronizing through entrainment your subconscious minds with the news cycles. They're programming you with essentially mental drills. They're boring neural pathways. You're pre-experiencing characters and events before they play it on the world stage. You're hypersuggestible, pumped full of post-hypnotic suggestions. You're MK ultra triggerable. And this programming is how everything makes sense. When you look at, like, why would you have Robert De Niro foreshadow the role of Trump? Well, precisely so that we see this as a hateable character who hates immigrants and deserves to be shot. Like, he was the villain. So we've already been presented with the villain, Biff Tannen Trump, in multiple facades. So then when De Niro goes out and says Trump needs to be shot, like, he basically called for the death of Trump, and he's ranting about Trump in public. Well, if you saw any of those movies, you see that face. It carries with it all the associations. This is what neurolinguistic programming is about. It's about the associations you have with various memes or stimuli, sounds, words, images. So you may not consciously recollect it unless you think really deep, but the instant you see Robert De Niro's face, there's a whole filing cabinet in your memory banks. Robert De Niro, all the roles that you've seen him in, that are all recalled. Sort of like when you see a friend you have a significant history with. You see them, you see their face, you have the emotions, you shake hands, hug, whatever. You don't instantly recall every single thing you ever did together, but it's tied up in that package. Same thing with these faces of these actors. You see that face, it's going to recall this stuff. So now, when the Trump shooting happened while he was giving a speech about immigrants after the ranting and raving of Robert De Niro, on some level, those of us who saw that movie Machete would have made that association subconsciously. We would have seen this as a natural consequence. We've already experienced it. I already saw Trump getting shot after an anti-immigrant speech. I saw it in 2010. Observing Reality says the unwitting role players in the ongoing simulated reality framed by the programmers. It's a big chessboard. And if you're taking sides in the political horseshoe, if you're left, if you're right, if you're woke, if you're a truther, if you're a normie, you're a piece on the chessboard. That's all you are. The players you never see, the true players, the programmers. Now that we have stepped outside of their game board, we're looking and we see the players and we see the played. And they don't like us because we're on the side calling it all fake. Dirk says, Tim, the cult of the world reminds me of my JW friend's cult. There's no way to deprogram him. Well, deprogramming is possible, but it has to happen at the level of the individual. You cannot, I don't believe you, here's the thing though, and I'm willing to test it. Because a lot of people are creatures of consensus. So we're doing Auto Hoax Con next month on the 28th. Auto Hoax Con number 1. The objective here is to send a signal to anybody who understands our perspective. And I'm actually going to be pre-recording a lot of stuff. That's going to be like for the segues, the intro, the outro. And I'm getting a bunch of posters made up of the model of the world as I see it. MSM box, the subsets, where the programmers are, where the deprogrammed are, the political horseshoe. I'm doing charts. I'm going to explain it very succinctly. My objective is to consolidate all of those who understand. And the more of us there are, the more likely that people who are in the consensus trance will decide to maybe take a look in our direction. But they won't until they see significant numbers, sadly. So yes, I am accounting for this. We are the vanguard. We are the pathfinders and the trailblazers here. We are the cutting fringe. We are the early adopters. We are the progenitors of this thing. But we are leading this apostasy. When we get big numbers, and when we make an appearance on the world stage, which is going to happen next month, then it sets the stage for a possible paradigm shock to the system. We may bring in a larger chunk than we thought possible. Like I say 10,000 is the number I'm aiming for the parallel media for the core. But I know a few things about marketing, and specifically target marketing. And in my opinion, this is a niche marketing operation where you create a market for something that didn't exist before, but there's a need that hasn't been articulated. And in my opinion, there's a huge vacuum, there's a huge void to be filled. There's a lot of people who would be objectivists if objectivism wasn't bunk. And objectivism, the philosophy, is kind of what we're espousing. We're the only true objectivists because the Ayn Rand version filtered their philosophy through the mainstream media. So what should have been a philosophical rejection of it got integrated. But what happened to all those objectivists? Well, now they're just latent. They're still programmed. So there's a lot of them. And then atheism. I'm not specifically an atheist, but I'm an atheist to the world church of media. I'm an atheist to all of their God constructs. Gaia, their space heaven, their nuke God. Like I'm definitely an atheist to this thing. And atheists are people who think critically about religion, but they're stuck in the mainstream religion. So you look at Richard Dawkins, not an atheist. Nope, he believes in Gaia, not an atheist. He believes. He doesn't know. He believes. There's a big difference. He believes in all of the lies of the mainstream, which is the world state church. So you don't even have real atheists. But the intellects that would lead to atheism have all been led astray into the world state church. So if you look at the total number of atheists and objectivists, these are thinkers who have been misled. But that's a large number of people who have the capacity and likely the mental framework to reject the argument from authority represented by the screen when they understand what it is, when it's shown to them. So I think that there's a potential for 100,000 people to join the apostasy, but it's not going to happen right away. We have to first set the framework and create this core, and then it can metastasize. And by that I mean I'd written a ebook on marketing long before this, back before I started selling my art online, and I used the framework, ironically, of the WHO pandemic model for marketing. And I was just describing how you have to have your minimum viable product. You have to create what is going to be replicated, and then you have to design it in such a way that somebody else could create another ground zero. So you can't be the only ground zero. It has to have many epicenters. And so the concept of this form of marketing is to go from being one person spreading something to people he knows to lots of people doing it. And this series of marketing tactics that I've talked about is how you would spread any meme from where you are, your laboratory, your laptop, to becoming viral, going global. And Auto Hoaxology 101 has immense virality. It can spread, but we have to deal with the gatekeepers and the guardrailers. And we have to have the numbers to do it. When we have 10,000 people on the raft, and we call out one of these guardrailers who says, oh, there was a second shooter, that's a lot of weight. And not only that, but their subscribers will take note. We simply have to ask, which side of the screen are you on? It is a convert or die situation. We have to put the pressure to get the influencers to admit, no, I'm on the Trutherville side of the fence. I'm not with you auto hoaxers. Like, good, thank you. Please clarify, because we want this market distinction. The niche market of auto hoaxing, if you want to look at it this way, or this branch of media, cannot grow until it differentiates itself from the programmed mass. And that's what we're doing right now. Dirk says space travel's fake. Plain Dakota says getting to the point is a journey, though. I'd imagine we all had an off stage in our lives. Yeah, there is a journey there to it. I do believe that it would make no sense to prematurely try to force somebody to see it this way. They have to change their operating system. They have to decide to be the arbiter of what they believe and not outsource it. And that's what the TV, the screen, represents, the monolith. It represents the ability to outsource your perceptions. And you're outsourcing it to liars. Pete Shea says the auto hoaxology song is great. I imagine the singer somehow is your... Oh, no, the singer is Symbia. I'll put a link to that track. The song Auto Hoaxology, released by Symbia, linked below. Slick Rick says, Tim, what's your opinion on the firmament concept? Well, if we don't believe in outer space travel, because we haven't been up there and we can't see, what's your basis for believing in the firmament? So my opinion is, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. And moreover, the dome concept is something that should be rejected, because what is a dome? An upside down bowl, higher in the middle, touches the ground. It's prematurely inserting a model. You're putting the cart before the horse. If anything, if the earth is flat, the sky is flat. The astral plane, it would be a plane. Like if the earth is flat and we haven't seen a curve, then we cannot prematurely say that it's a discrete object, floating, meaning there's nothing below us. If the earth is flat, there's nothing below us. It's not an object in space, which means what we call space is simply everything that's up. So it's a completely different model. But at this point, I'm not willing to say I know or I really believe that this is like as the Bible says, because that's the main psyop here. They want to create this dichotomy between religion and science. The truth of it is, science, like real science not corrupted by fake science, as in augmented virtual reality and CGI, and lies, would arrive at the truth. It's an operating system, like skepticism, which is inherent in the scientific method. We don't reject that. To reject science is to reject skepticism, and Bible flat earthers are non-skeptical. And if you look at them by and large, if you're a Bible earther and you believe there's a dome, I guarantee they believe in chemtrails, QAnon, or they're close to it. They're going to believe in all the truth or orthodoxies. Dirk Zink says, we live in a plane with the firmament. I meet a man who says somewhere around 70 miles his unmanned rockets would hit an invisible shield he called the firmament. He showed me his damaged rockets as proof. Dirk used to share that video, and I can go ahead and help and explain that. These unmanned rockets, which always have a camera on board, seem to suddenly hit something when they reach 70 miles up. But what you're actually looking at is, I think it's called a reverse spin gyro. I'll see if I can find it. There's something in there where the rocket stops at this very specific point, and then it comes back down. It's designed to stop, but there's a mechanism inside of it. So it's not hitting anything. It's not hitting anything at 70 miles. And there's a reason why it stops. It's planned. But apparently, videos of these rockets stopping at 70 miles is being used as evidence by Dearth to say that there's a barrier at 70 miles up. I don't know why he does that. It's been called out. He's been called out on that since 2020, and he's still calling it. He's still saying, oh yeah, this rocket's hitting the dome. No, it's not. So that's bad evidence. The person is inadvertently spreading misinformation. Plain Decoded says, Plus, they get emotional, and your subconscious programming is 10x when you get into an emotional state. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thirst says, never forget behind the perv. Yeah, yeah. Forget behind the curve. Behind the perv is even more significant. We unveiled something terrible, that the entire truther movement is led by federal informants, and many of the people who are given big platforms, many of these controlled opposition types, are people who are on parole for bad things and they made deals. The Flat Earth movement was like the Bible Flat Earth Society. Why is their leader and founder in jail? Nobody talks about it. Well, nobody talks about it because he is best friends with the Flat Earth Conference organizer, Robbie Davidson, and he's friends with Rob Skiba. Supposedly dead. But if the most popular Flat Earthers are best friends with a guy who went to jail for child stuff, like 56 counts, it would raise some eyebrows. So then we examined this and we found out it's very extensive. It's like, why is this Flat Earth Conference led by, and why are all its keynote speakers sex offenders? Like, that's weird. Do I want to be associated with this? A bunch of sex offender Nazis? Not really. I mean, it's really distasteful. And then Dave Weiss sticks up for one of these abusers, and he says, ignore IPS. The girl said she was 18. Authentic intent was tricked. Nothing to see here. No, sorry, Dearth. That's a really horrible thing to say. Minors cannot consent. They can lie, but they don't have the ability to consent in any circumstance. And then you're missing the bigger point. Authentic intent, the person we're talking about, who was being handled by Dearth, who was a speaker at a conference, had been on a 6-month relationship with a 14-year-old, was picking her up at school from across the street. Like, he knew very well what he was doing. So the idea that you could defend that is sickening. And so he made it into the documentary Behind the Perv. And I said then, anybody who's going to follow these people are being misled. And if you're going to be behind the perv, you can go ahead and exit the IPS and what we represent, because we're not the same. We're not part of that group. Deep inside the rabbit hole, Dearth, Fed, Flat Earth Dave, whatever you want to call him, yeah, he's a very shady character and a liar, and he literally, on record, defended a child abuser and all the people around him, a bunch of offenders. Very sick. Side note. Dirk says Dave Weiss is 100% a liar. Jake the a-hole exposed him several times, and his buddies make a yeah. There's a few things about it too. We'll get into it. In fact, the Insider, our tabloid, has a story on David Weiss that I look forward to publishing. He thinks he can ignore us. In fact, he won't say the word infinite. He said the extended plane. He even made up a new word. He said it might be a non-finite plane. Non-finite? The guy, he won't say infinite plane because he's afraid of us, because he knows that we can destroy his reputation in the public just by pointing at things that he was involved in, people he's associated with. Observing Reality says Trump was beloved before 2016. The weirdest thing to see was the instant claimed hatred by half the population. Yeah, look at Snoop Dogg. And Robert Deniro called him a clown, which is notable considering Snoop Dogg. I'll see if I can find the picture. Snoop Dogg shoots Trump as clown in a music video. But before this, they were buddies. They go to these roasts. They're on good terms. It's like this with all of them. This Trump derangement syndrome is fake. It's an act. Although, I know people in my real life who are truly Trump deranged. In fact, last year, someone I know said, "Where's Lee Harvey Oswald when you need him?" And I said, and I know that's sick because he believes it's all real, and he's hoping for this. And I said, don't worry, it's coming. Plain Dakota says 10,000, that's the goal. When's the goal date? The goal date for 10,000 is by the election, and we will get there. We've done this before. If you remember, after Nipsey Hussle's hoax death, we went from 300 subs to 12,000 quick, and we had 1,500 people on our live streams. So we can do that. It's not hard. Ryler05 says Ayn Rand is so disgusting. Well, what's disgusting about the operating system of objectivism that places rationality and individual perception over collective perception and emotion and mysticism? The problem with Ayn Rand, and personally maybe she was disgusting, but the operating system is there, and that's what's needed here. Objective reality over the subjectivism, the solipsism, the nihilism of today. But objectivism as a philosophy failed because it was always filtered through a right-leaning mainstream filter. And it believes in outer space. They see that as a triumph of capitalism and of free markets and all this. And it's like, no, that's the religious pageantry that you rail against in any other context. Like you reject the stone obelisk as a symbol of resurrection, but you embrace the burning obelisk that resurrects into the heaven right in front of your eyes. It ascends. But yeah, the obelisk is a symbol of resurrection. Violet says IPS has a massive potential because it's not lies. Precisely. And that is our strength here, is we're fact-based. We have receipts. We're not making claims. I'm not mixing in with people who make crazy claims like, hey, all these coincidences means that there's a supercomputer that we'll never understand. I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of that explanation that there's no way man could have organized these coincidences. It's like, are you kidding me? Look around you at the miracles created by men. Like, go look at your iPhone, your smartphone. If you took it apart piece by piece, component for component, you're not going to find a part in there that was made by an alien. You're not going to find a part in there that is like a magic pellet or a magic stone. You're not going to find something inexplicable. Every piece in there has a trademark, has a patent, has somebody making money off of it. Every single piece of it is accounted for. But because you can't look at it at face value and say, you know how it works and explain all of its intricacies, doesn't mean that it's beyond your understanding. It just means you have to look it up. And people get mystified quite easily when they're told, hey, this was fake, that was fake, because they don't understand how it could be fake, because they haven't taken it apart. You have to take apart the world stage. You got this TV set, this box, this black box that you filter your perceptions through. And as long as you're filtering your perceptions through it and you haven't stepped back, you're not apprised of what's outside of it that influences it, such as psyops, hoaxes, special effects, actors, lies. Dirk says, what do you think of Gene Nolan? I haven't heard Gene Nolan. I'll take a look if you want to post a link. But this has massive potential because, as I said in my marketing guide, I use the WHO model, meaning that every single infected person could be a ground zero. Every person that carries that idea can be a ground zero for a pandemic. So every single one of you, fully informed, is now the potential epicenter for a mind virus outbreak. You are all ground zeros. And that's what we're doing by consolidating and quarantining. If we all get on the same sheet, we're all basically informed in the same way, then we can each replicate, and this is how it spreads. I witnessed the advent of false flag theory, I think following post 9/11 when Alex Jones came out with the Operation Northwoods. Oh, it's a leaked government document, so we can believe it because we're alternative. And it says that the governments will fake events, or they'll do real events, but they'll wear somebody else's uniform to trick people. So that false flag became the framework. Now every truther runs around with Operation Northwoods. Oh, that's not real because Operation Northwoods, it's a false flag. People died, but these guys did it. You see how that works. Alex Jones created an operating system, rather a methodology, for looking at news. And every info warrior considered to be part of the resistance is using that methodology, and it's flawed. So what we're doing is we're creating a methodology. We already have. And every single person who goes off world stage will have this perspective, and we will be assessing the media in the same way. So it's not about telling you what to believe, but it's about how to perceive media appropriately. And when you do that, you will arrive at what is knowable and you will know what is fake. You'll be an informed disbeliever. Let's Go says, Tim, can you explain how it came to be that MG is your stalker? Why did he take an interest in your channel and shutting you down? Sure. After we brought Mad Mike on the scene, if you remember, it was like this channel was fairly new. We were growing fast, and we set up a billboard. We crowdfunded a billboard that said "Research Flat Earth" outside of an airport. Mad Mike Hughes was a daredevil who was attempting to crowdfund his rockets, and he wasn't able to make it happen for several years. So he sees the billboard, and then he looks it up, and he calls me while I'm live. And we had 400 people live, and he said, I have this idea. Let's put Research Flat Earth on the side of my rocket. And he explained that he had a long-term plan of taking a Raccoon, a balloon rocket hybrid, to the edge of space, and that if we funded his rocket, he would give us the answers we needed. That was the objective. And that story spread. In fact, the New Yorker picked it up. We've been referenced in the New Yorker twice in 2 different articles, looking for life on flat Earth. Let me go and bring this up. The New Yorker, I'll put a link below. Looking for life on flat Earth. On the last Sunday afternoon in March, Mike Hughes, a 62-year-old limousine driver, launched himself above the Mojave in his steam-powered rocket, and he set a record for the longest ramp jump. Anyway, it goes through his various records that he set. But it says here, for all he's done, Hughes might have attracted very little media attention were it not for his outspoken belief that the world is flat. He says, do I believe the Earth is shaped like a Frisbee? He says, I believe it is, but I don't know for sure. That's why I want to go up into space. So he told the Associated Press that he personally believes it, but he doesn't know, and he's going to find out. Hughes converted in 2017. He called into the Infinite Plane Society, a live stream YouTube channel, to announce his beliefs and ambitions and ask for the community's endorsement. It says here, they had a GoFundMe campaign. They raised more than $7,500 on his behalf, enabled him to make the Mojave jump with the words "Research Flat Earth" on the side of his rocket. So after this happened, we started getting a lot of attention, and it was very easy to fund things, billboards, art shows, multiple art shows and gatherings. And so we started gaining a lot of momentum. But I refused to take the biblical flat Earth into account, and I refused to separate what we were doing from examining fake news. And back then, auto-hoaxing wasn't mainstream among the flat Earth contingent. After that happened, our channel became the subject of a number of stalkers, a lot of stalkers, not just MG. But it's like there was this concerted effort to take us down. Well, MG was, I believe, sicked upon us intentionally. This was his whole thing. He was a stalker originally, didn't know who he was. But he told me in a private email that he was going to scrub me and Mad Mike Hughes off the internet. In fact, if you go to marcusgoldfinch.com, and I don't recommend that you do this. I mean, this is kind of a tangent. But in one of his confessionals, which I obtained because I'm a fisher, as I said yesterday, I fished a full confession out of this guy. Here he is, top tier government contractor, hacker, and stalker, and smear. I think he's a smear. He does smear campaigns. He's a specialist in all these things. And he told me he did this. He said, I do this for a living, but I'm going to take you out for fun. But in his confessional, which he thought he was sending to somebody else, he didn't know he was sending it to me. And I'm scrolling down to get it. I'll get his exact quote. And I'm working on a documentary on this, by the way. There's quite a lot here. Okay, I think I found it. But he said here that he planned to take me and Mad Mike Hughes out of the conversation altogether. Anyway, that's the long and short of it. To answer your question, he was part of the YouTube conspiracy realm already. And it seemed like he had connections at YouTube, and he was involved in gatekeeping actively. And he was, I think, tasked with suppressing the IPS. And he had connections to all the top tier flat earthers who did the conferences. They all knew him. They all knew who he was. He interacted with them. In fact, MG is the guy who set up the interview between Eric Dubay and some mixed martial arts guy and Eddie Bravo. So MGTV is connected to the alt-right media ecosystem. He was almost hired by InfoWars. He was almost hired by Jack Posobiec. And he's connected to all the MMA fighters, and he knows Joe Rogan personally. But now he works at the White House. And we doxed him before he got that gig at the White House. But I think he's a government contractor. And that he took a personal interest in me. And he said he was going to destroy me, is what he said. Dirk says, I'm glad I found your channel. Feels good to be here linked with like-minded souls. Yeah, we can disagree on minor points, but as long as we have the same operating system, it doesn't matter. As long as we're all skeptical. But yeah, it was definitely connected to Mad Mike. In fact, Mad Mike told me, he said, don't stop until this guy loses all his money and is living under a bridge and can't even find a bridge to sleep under. Like he said, don't let it go. Here's an example. Mad Mike was he was like a magnet for media attention. You know, being a daredevil is being a stuntman and a PR stuntman. That's why he joined up with us. He needed the PR, he needed the exposure, and he wanted the fame. He wanted to be the world's greatest daredevil, and he achieved it with our help. We helped him realize his life ambition. But he was getting so much media attention that it was drawing it away from others. I mean, Russian Vids hated him for that, Mark Sarge, they all hated him. They hated him because he was taking attention, and that made no sense to us. I thought you guys are here to explode the big lie system. But now you're forming factions because you don't want to share your spotlight. It didn't make any sense. But for example, Mike had been on Tosh.0, which is like this comedy show, and this is Celebrity Profile Flat Earth Rocket Man Tosh.0. Now, this is just one example of the type of coverage that he got. So this was the trending video on YouTube, one of the top trending videos for several days. Got millions of hits, right? And if you look on the top left, it says MGTV, that logo. Why is that? Because every time I would upload content, I would get flagged. And then MG would take my content and re-upload it and put his brand on it. So here you have Tosh.0 and Mad Mike, but because MGTV's logo was here on the top left, he filed a copyright strike and he had this trending video pulled. So Mike was getting so influential, he was going viral consistently, going out and saying things to Wired Magazine like Elon Musk is sending blimps and he's faking space. So this MG character was actually against Mike.
Probably got direct deposit though, so you don't even get the ka-ching. You just
Direct deposit really convenient though. You don't like that?
I don't trust banks.
You don't trust banks?
Oh no.
Where do you want me to put my money? I'm being honest.
I would think putting Mad Mike in space for $2 million.
You better make that motherfucker a two-seater, and I want to sit in front, and I don't want to sit behind you, because I don't want the last thing of us going into Earth is me penetrating through you.
Yeah, I don't even like the thought of that.
Okay, anyway, that's Mike, very charismatic and having the time of his life. Meanwhile, he has these detractors calling him a fraud. You know, when I was raising money, people were putting up videos accusing me. They said, he's just stealing your money and the rocket's all CGI. So I drove out to the Mojave to prove it was real. You know, Fox News went out to the Mojave and they said, conspiracy theorists don't believe this guy's rocket is real and we're here to verify it. Yeah, Fox News actually went out there because people were calling us liars. It was very frustrating, to be honest. You know, you're trying to raise money while people are trying to tear down what you're doing. Meanwhile, what we're doing is something that everybody seemingly should want to happen. So there was a lot of internal resistance, and we haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten any of it. Flat Earth Reset was one of the worst offenders, but unfortunately, he's dead. Plain Dakota says the rocket thing definitely got into my subconscious, probably led me here. Ryler says the whole Mad Mike thing is sus. What do you mean it's sus? Mad Mike was a well-established daredevil. In fact, I'm his biographer. And his biography was quoted in another New Yorker magazine a few months ago. Mad Mike was the only thing not sus about Flat Earth. He was totally not part of it. He'd been doing daredevil stunts for 30 years. He had multiple Guinness records. And then he had a period where he wasn't getting the finance he needed. He couldn't get the attention, the support. And so there was kind of this period where he had a lot of launches that just didn't happen. And then we made it happen. And the first one, he broke the world record. He succeeded. The second one was done during a Science Channel show, Homemade Astronauts, that wasn't connected to us. And that was the one in 2020 on 2/22, where there was problems with the parachute deployment, or he was unconscious. You see, they wanted to have remote detonated parachutes in case he couldn't set them off. And he said no. He said he wouldn't consider himself a daredevil if there wasn't the possibility of death. And so he had to manually pull the parachutes. Well, on that particular launch, he added another 90 pounds of water, more G-forces. He wanted to go 5,000 feet instead of just what he did before, 1,800 something. And so on that second launch, it is I believe, that the force of the impact from the rocket taking off I think he was knocked out. And going so fast, I don't think he was able to even think about pulling those parachutes. And so, yeah, he set his record. He went 5,000 feet and he launched. I don't think he came back down. I think his last moment awake was turning the switch. I don't think he was even cognizant of the crash. But I'm his biographer. I have all the facts about it. It was 100% real. And was it a tragedy? No. I mean, it depends on how you look at tragedy. People do extreme things. People die climbing mountains, hang gliding. People die pushing limits in their own way. I'm not going to criticize it. New Perspective says, have you included Robert De Niro's role in Kings of Comedy into the parallels of Joker and Taxi Driver? I have not, but we should. And someone had mentioned yesterday that in the show The Boys, there's a scene where they're watching Taxi Driver. Dirk says, Tim, you're a smart guy. Why does Garrow have so many trolls? He has more trolls than fans, it seems. Because he's been doing this for so many years. I mean, I used to have a lot of trolls, but we deal with our trolls. You see, the difference between our channels is I recognize early on that there's going to be a lot of trolls, and they have a louder voice. You know how many people have been listening for years and contributing in the chat, but we've never heard them? So I think what's happening with his channel is this. When we started, I gave mod wrenches to everybody in chat, and I said, if you see somebody pushing a Bible Earth model, or if they're pushing globe, if they're saying everything's real, if they have an agenda, ban them. We're only talking about this. We're focusing our laser, attention. We're really boring down on the facts of things. We're trying not to get distracted with agendas and belief systems. So I gave out wrenches to get rid of trolls and distractions. And naysayers. I'm like, let's get a billboard done. And you'd have somebody say, oh, you couldn't do it. Too much money. They'll say things. Ban them. Because if you get rid of the people who preemptively say something's not possible, you make it more likely you can do it. I think it was it Henry Ford or Lincoln who said, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can or can't, you're right. Okay, if you think you can or can't, you're right. Henry Ford. So we're able to fine-tune our think tank by filtering out disruptors. And what we have now is a product of that. And now it pretty much keeps itself internally clean. We have some disruptors and we flush them out. Garrow never had a wrench lodge. He never had the philosophy that we have as far as an armed society is a polite society. So we had trolls. I've had trolls that have stalked me personally, not just MG. There was one guy who was the top, imagine this, the top Redditor at Reddit for the conspiracy subreddits was one of my stalkers. We figured out who he was. He was an IT guy in Texas. And when I found out who he was, I sent pizzas to his job. I called all his coworkers. They changed their number because of me. Somebody kicked his door at 3 a.m. and put a penguin face on his door. I mean, we got rid of him. Plus, I sued him. And it didn't go that far, but it drove him away. We've had other trolls and stalkers and issues, but like I said, we deal with them. And we'll continue to do so. I hate banning people. That's why I banned Upside Down Guy. If somebody's here obviously just to detract and disrupt, we don't need them, especially at this point. We have enough people who know what's going on. Now, Tim Osman is not a troll. Tim Osman is a true believer in the mainstream media, and we keep him around for a reason. We need people from the representative boxes so we can study them. So I'm studying truthers. If you're triggered by chemtrails, I'm studying you. If you are Mandela affected, I'm studying you. If you believe the mainstream news and there's a second shooter, we're studying you. There's a reason why. We're alien anthropologists here. And we're reverse engineering the programming. And we're paving a way for people to deprogram. I said we can't deprogram people, they have to do it themselves. Well, yeah, but nobody has any context. Everybody's submerged in the sea of irrelevance. There's no way they can come to a coherent view. You have 72 hours of news pumped into every 24-hour news cycle. If you don't have the philosophical framework to categorically reject claims, to reject knowledge claims just in the face of them, then you're not going to be able to parse through it like we do. You'll be lost. You'll be dependent on others to tell you what's going on. But the more we refine auto-hoaxology as a refined form of skepticism, applied skepticism, the easier it will be for others to follow in our footsteps. We are leading an apostasy, and it starts with burning down the world stage's infrastructure. That's why I call the tabloid the insider. So there is a way we're going to reach the masses who are programmed, and it's going to be through the tabloid. It'll be just like in Men in Black. In Men in Black, they call them the hot sheets. The hot sheets. This is going to be the insider. An insider, to incite. It's also a reference to Ignatius Loyola. Ignatius means to ignite. The founder of the Jesuits, who famously said, "Light a candle for the sinners, set the world on fire." It's about spreading the faith. But we're doing the same thing. Light a candle for the auto-believers and set the world stage on fire. But here's a clip from Men in Black that explains my premise for the Insider tabloid and what it's going to do for us.
Anything about that seem unusual to you? What would scare Reggick so badly that he'd risk a warp jump with a newborn?
Okay, so this is Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith's character, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, so he says we have to go get the information from the hot sheets.
These are the hot sheets? Best investigator reporting on the planet. Go ahead, read the New York Times if you want to. They get lucky sometimes. Thanks, Manny.
Cannot believe you're looking for tips in the supermarket tabloids.
Looking for tips in the supermarket tabloids.
Not looking for. Found.
So the IPS Insider is going to tell the truth from a fully informed off-world stage perspective as a tabloid. That's why I chose tabloid. Some people said, don't do a tabloid. People won't take you seriously. It's like, I don't take them seriously. Their worldview is tabloid. We're doing this ironically. It's for the aesthetics. It's for the irony. And it underscores our entire perspective here. One of my business models on copying is the Inquirer. And if you look at something like the Inquirer, mainstream hates it, but they have to live with it. And they don't want to be on it because it can destroy you. It can make you look really bad. Unflattering shots. We will have our paparazzi, believe me. And I have my sights on a number of people who will be fully exposed for what they are. But what the Insider is going to really, what it's going to do, which makes it groundbreaking, is every article, every image, every podcast that I have transcribed, every interview, will be accessible to anybody who sees this paper and scans it because of the QR codes. So it will be reciprocally linked with the online version. It's going to be distributed through IPS Press Pass carriers, and the inaugural issue will make its appearance on 9/28/2024 at AutoHoaxCon number 1. And I have enough material for the first 6 issues. That's how much content people have sent to me. A lot of people, Messianic Charlatan and many others, have written articles. And there's a lot of research. I have a lot of content myself. I have 121 pages in an ebook that I'm actually just going to put into articles. So it's going to launch. And this is what the ticket sales go to. So if you go to ips.monster and you buy your ticket for AutoHoaxCon #1, we're going to have a documentary crew because we're filming a documentary called The Auto Hoaxer. And we're going to have the IPS Insider make its inaugural appearance. So if you want to get that ticket, it's not until next month, 9/28. It's a Zoom conference. I believe some people have said that they want to show up here and attend the local event, which is fine. I don't charge tickets for the local event, just for the Zoom. Okay, let's continue. Ryler says Henry Ford was a Nazi. Oh, by the way, let's talk about Henry Ford really quick. Henry Ford and Elon Musk. Elon Musk is someone who has promulgated through X a lot of what you would consider to be anti-Semitism. That's what he's been blamed for. Is he a Nazi? I don't know. But Elon Musk is our modern day Henry Ford. Henry Ford had his Dearborn newsletter, his newspaper, where he published the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. So you have some connection between Musk and Ford in that sense. But then someone, I think it was actually Messianic Charlatan, he said, look at the T model as it relates to the Tesla and the Tesla logo, which is all really interesting to consider. It's a big, the T model. In other words, Musk is a historic analog to Ford in many ways. That's part of his character. He's part Henry Ford, part Werner von Braun, part Tony Stark and Willy Wonka, as well as the Elon from Werner von Braun's book. Okay, let's see. Phil LeBlanc says, IPS, IPO is next, I'm in. Yeah, I'm interested in doing an IPS energy drink. I wanted to do adrenochrome shots, but I think I might do an IPS energy drink. I found a company that white labels these things. I'll sell it through our store. As far as IPS detractors, I'm not worried about them. I mean, they're wrong. What are you, a media advocate? Like you got these like CNN defenders, Fox defenders, InfoWars defenders. Like they don't have the moral nor intellectual high ground, and they can't argue against us. They can't debate us without getting flustered. And the AutoHoaxCon is simply this. We're going to use AutoHoaxCon to define the parallel media, to make it distinct. And I'm going to open it up to voices that represent this perspective, but also to people who want to debate. That's why I want the documentary crew there. I want them to get the faces of the triggered. We're creating a documentary everywhere I go to promote Autohoaxology 101. First it's here. The next one will likely be in Las Vegas. The next one from there, probably Denver. But I'm planning to do a series of AutoHoaxCons monthly, if not more frequent, depending on how the ticket sales go. If the gas money's there, I will go. And we will make it happen in various places. And I have found a lot of places where, like here, we have libraries where I can rent conference rooms. So like, you don't have to pay for venues. We don't have to worry about quantity. We're not trying to bring in big numbers. I'm not trying to say, for example, I'm not trying to recruit big conspiracy channels to be keynote speakers and attract big audiences. No, we're going for quality, not quantity. But as this moves forward, we're going to, I believe, bring in a lot more people into the conversation, and also shoot down a lot of bad arguments. I want someone willing to represent skyphobia to debate me. I want a Mandalard, debate me. Convince me that there used to be a cornucopia in your pants, and that somewhere there are some very rich people who got their money from a big check from Ed McMahon. Like, please, let's debate. And if people aren't willing to debate, that's a tough one, though. Some people are just so sensitive. We'll find somebody. Like, for example, I would love to debate someone like Brian Stavely on the Mandela effect, but he won't. But we'll find people. That's what I'm saying. And we did a conference with Mad Mike in Las Vegas, and I got a number of people to attend, like Mick West. We brought in Mick West, who's from Metabunk, to debate this stuff. Joined by Northern Girl. Hi, everyone, she says. Okay, so far we have, let me just give you a count here because our numbers are getting good. We have 15 people on Twitter. No, that's a backup YouTube channel. I see I have 56 on Twitter, 109 on the main channel. So that's 182. Odyssey's another 20. TuneIn, Paranormal Radio, RadioNet, and Radio King adds another 50. So roughly we're past 250. We're going to be close to 300. And the numbers aren't going to go down. Jessica Lynn says, in Brave New World, wasn't Ford referred to as a deity, as in thank Ford? I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. Here we go. Aldous Huxley's Americanization of the Brave New World. Thank Ford. Ford knows. I had no idea about that. But I often reference the Sea of Irrelevance, which is a Huxley reference. That's a Huxley statement. They said that we're adrift in a sea of irrelevance. And it's true. Because if you're on the world stage, if you're in the box, if you're in the MSM worldview, facts get submerged in a sea of subjectivity. This is where you get the bifurcated psyops, where it's not possible for the left and the right to have completely different interpretations of the same person or event, and yet they coexist. It should be one or the other. And this is part and parcel of how this thing works. It's why liberals see Bill Gates as a savior, and they see Elon Musk as Satan. It's why right-wingers and truthers see Bill Gates as Satan and see Elon Musk as a savior. I mean, how can that be? You know, there are people who call Elon Musk a savior already because they think he saved free speech, which is hilarious. You know, the space program, and Musk is part of it, is about controlling the space between your ears. Always has been. It's always been worldview warfare. The idea that he's defending free speech is laughable. It's risible. He is, in fact, a fall guy for free speech. Elon Musk is providing the pretext that the masses will accept for censorship. Like, oh look, disease X, it's a mind virus. We have to stop it. Dirk says, I see through Elon Musk. Notice everyone calls him a genius. It's all about mocking, in my opinion. Every time he speaks. Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. It ties into this idea that some things are so complex, you have to be a rocket surgeon to understand it, and so you just want to default to him and make him an expert. So he understands the stuff. He can take us to Mars. So you outsource your perception of Mars to Elon Musk because he's been advertised as a genius who's going to get us there. But it's all CGI and fake. That's the main point here. If you had looked for yourself and not trusted that he was a genius, and if you recognize that instead he's a con man, a liar and a player and an actor and a mind control op, yeah, you would see through it. Constance says, hey Tim, check out this quick clip of an interview with Gene Wilder. It's interesting comparing him with Elon Musk because he keeps talking about not knowing if he's lying or not. Okay. Now, Elon Musk bought Gene Wilder's house. We're talking Willy Wonka. So Musk's eccentric side is just stolen from Gene Wilder. And if you look at the story, you know, Gene Wilder is another one to add. He's another Hades with an underworld. He's another one of these underworld characters like Oz or the Mad Hatter. But in Willy Wonka, the story, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the whole thing is he goes through a tunnel at a high rate of speed, dizzying speeds, into this other world where the people have orange faces, the Oompa Loomps. You know, those are Martians. This is like the underground Mars base that Musk is a part of. This whole idea of Mars program is about living subterranean. There's no atmosphere on Mars. But at the same time that he was talking about his boring company and hyperlooping people, he was also talking about creating a candy company and buying Gene Wilder's house. This is all how they build the composites. Slick Rick says Elon has always been an actor. The true believers in Elon Musk, like I know one. He said this is going to be a good year. I can feel it. Elon's going to colonize that bitch. We had this video of a true believer looking at Mars one night, and he said, yeah, Elon Musk is going to colonize that bitch. Like, that's hilarious. I mean, just the idea is going to go send his rocket out there and just, it has this idea. It's just like, the hopefulness is kind of sad in a way. Like, you really believe this. Another point about Musk and Bezos and Branson. Branson is typically shown as a womanizer, always carrying scantily clad women across the beach, always surrounded by women. His Virgin Galactic, it's all about the goddess in Virgo. In fact, it has this, if you look at the Virgin Galactic plane, it has a goddess on the side. In fact, he had a boat called, I got to look at the name of his boat. I think it was Scarlet something. There's quite a lot. If we go into these various space popes. But this one is definitely the feminine side. It's always about the goddess. And he sent a bunch of ladies up there last time. But there's a lady on the side of the planes here, on the nose of the plane. Bezos is always wearing a cowboy hat. And he's been accused, too, of running a sexist company. And then Elon Musk, too, has been called sexist. A number of women have made complaints about him. Not big deal. It's not a huge deal, but there have been this, like the toxic masculinity. That's the culture there. So you have the cowboy hats. You had, and not just Musk wearing a cowboy hat there in Texas, but Bezos wears a cowboy hat. So space cowboys has been brought up. The idea here is that they want the public to reject the space cowboys. That space is not the new frontier. This is not manifest destiny. This is not the West exporting itself into the universe. That's what they're trying to kill. So they're making Musk an example of why we can't let billionaires, the richest man in the world, can't let him have so much control over the commons of cyberspace and outer space. Because he pollutes low Earth orbit outer space with space junk. He pollutes cyberspace, our other commons globally, with mind junk. He endangers both. Must be stopped. Bezos, richest man, former richest man in the world, Amazon, big cowboy hat, can't have that space cowboy go up there talking about mining an asteroid and bringing down trillions of dollars in wealth. Because that will be destabilizing, and it will incentivize more capitalism, which will speed up, it'll exacerbate the climate change disaster. So they're setting up this idea of outer space as being something that we must approach collectively as one, but that it cannot be led by individuals led by greed and money. Now, the movie Don't Look Up I referenced at the beginning is precisely that. The character who represents the Bezos is kind of an amalgamation of Bezos and Musk. And he's the one who says, we could divert this comet from hitting the Earth, or we could mine it for money. So he puts capitalism and money ahead of the safety of the Earth itself. And the Earth dies. Does that not sound exactly like the climate change story? So when William Shatner went to space on Bezos' rocket, Bezos is down on the ground with the cowboy hat. William Shatner goes into space, and he comes back down and he says, essentially, that he felt like he was looking at a wake for dead Mother Earth. And he can't believe all the damage we did with capitalism. And there he is with one of the kings of capitalism himself, Jeff Bezos. So now you have Captain Kirk, William Shatner, space, a new frontier, saying that no, this can't be the new frontier. We can't continue this way. We have to save the Earth. So they were kind of reversing course in the idea that space is a product of capitalism and the West and manifest destiny, and the idea that we can expand and grow indefinitely, but rather they're changing the whole perception of it. And this is very much in line with the advent of the space program in Russia, even before their space program, where they talked about space communism. In fact, there's a book called Red Star from 1909 that explains it all, where it's a fictional novel about a communist society on Mars, and that it's so good that they adopt it on Earth. And that's what they're doing here. They're going to convince us that sustainable Mars bases do just fine without their free markets, without their AR-15s and MAGA hats. This is the way to live. They're using the Mars program to sell us as an ideal so we can live on Earth as we will on Mars. What's fascinating about the space program is that they use this to sell free people on gulag life. Like, yeah, you like your freedom, but it has a high cost. They make you feel guilty about it. And the new model for living in space is seen as progress because it looks like progress. But really, if you're going to, it's like the rich man can no more go into heaven than a camel can pass through a needle. Well, you can't bring your capitalism to Mars. The space that they're presenting us, it's a new heaven. And to go there, we have to get rid of everything that destroyed the earth. The materialism. The ideal of Mars is essentially that. It's an ascetic, post-capitalist, communist type structure. Yeah, I'll take calls. Before you call in, let me review my mind map one more time, because you brought this up yesterday. Robert De Niro not only got kicked off Twitter for making threats to Trump, and this is on his birthday, 8/17, which on the Julian calendar is 8/4, but he jumped off his yacht after a couple of days before talking about how much he likes Leonardo DiCaprio. And then this is a few days after Trump plays the Titanic song at the MAGA rally and gets lambasted for it. So you have the Titanic brought up with all its 9/11 connections and the sinking of the West. Then you have the guy, Trump deranged Deniro, who represents Trump in various facets in these roles, threatening Trump and then jumping off of the yacht on this 8/4 connected date, which symbolizes, I think, Trump sinking, the Titanic sinking. So it's all there. It's all concise. And on this mind map, I just added to it. There's no way it's a coincidence that A, De Niro and Trump are not connected in this twin-like fashion. Therefore, this Trump threat must mean something. And the sinking, as he jumped off the boat, must mean something. But similarly, there's no way this is a coincidence that Alec Baldwin gets off after shooting somebody, just as Trump gets all his charges dropped. Similarly, we're talking about this previous event where in 2016 Trump had said, I can shoot somebody and not lose any votes. I can shoot somebody with impunity and get away with it. And what did Baldwin do? And Baldwin is a Trump twin in SNL. And this is just scratching the surface, but we're doing a Metascript breakdown. But De Niro getting in trouble over X right now is a highly significant event. Okay, phones are open if you want to call in. I'll put the number on the screen. It's 505-510-4226 if you have anything to add to that. How long have we been live here, by the way? Has it been 4 hours, or am I miscalculating this? Busy56 says, first day of DNC is tomorrow on the day of the super blue moon. Blue party and blue moon. Ooh, very nice. Violet says, definitely call in. Last time got the brain spinning. Good to see how both your work connects. Oh, is it going to hang up mode? Let me try it again. It should be on. Okay, now it's on. Infinite Plane Radio.
You know what, dude? I wasn't going to call in, but some creature in your chat says she was dying for me to call in. Some creature named Diana.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
She was begging me to call in, this creature. I don't know. She's obsessed with me or something. I don't know.
Well,
but anyway.
You called it yesterday. You said the hullabaloo about De Niro, and you mentioned his date, and I checked. The Julian calendar right now is 13 days apart. So you have the 8/4 connection to De Niro's birthday. Then you have all the Trump connections to De Niro we've already been talking about. But now he jumps off his yacht and gets kicked off of Twitter after threatening Trump's life. What do you make of all this?
Well, no, man. I listened to your whole thing with the De Niro. It's crazy how this dude is so connected to this, you know. And you forgot to mention one thing just now. That's the only reason I got triggered to call in is because you mentioned Elon trying to buy Gene Wilder's house.
Oh yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Gene Wilder's born on June 11th. That's why I was calling in. But
oh really?
Yeah. He was born in 1933 on June 11th. Yeah.
He
And,
bought it in 2013, Gene Wilder's former home. So he recently sold it, but yeah, he bought it, and it was part of this whole thing. But so Gene Wilder's birth is, you said,
June 1133. That's when the Trump was shot. 6/11/33.
Holy crap! Yeah, you're right. 6/11/33.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's interesting, fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Good find there. And yeah, this Robert De Niro stuff is incredible though, because it's perfect. He was the assassin and the assassinated, as Travis Bickle and the Joker, and as in the Joker movie, as Murray Franklin. And then he's the assassinated, or rather nearly assassinated, senator. And of course, these roles are all integrated into this story.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Taxi, because I used to drive Taxi 216, which is August 4th, the 216th day of the year. Yeah, that's another connection to the insane puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one other point here too, and I just brought this up. Matthew Modine played Joker in Full Metal Jacket with a target in the side of his head, and that Joker role is JFK. And there's all kinds of inside jokes in the movie to show this is JFK. Same actor dies season 4, episode 8 in Stranger Things. 4/8. Just like in the show The Boys, the Trump character is in 4/8 called Assassination Run, and they had to alter it. But when I came across this Matthew Modine Joker connection, it's another Joker connection, just like the Joker movie. Another Joker connection to this shooting. I was like, okay, they're going to shoot him on this side of the head, right where the 45 is. That's Kubrick's signature, and we certainly called it.
And by the way, Matthew Modine is born on Skull and Bones Day, which is 3/22, right? I mean, the Skull and Bones number.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's even better. That's rather good info there.
Interesting there, yeah. Oh man, I just oh my goodness, I just lost my train of thought. I had something that you were talking about. Just go ahead and keep talking, man.
Okay,
I lost my train of thought.
A couple other things here. So Matthew Modine in that Stranger Things episode was at portal 116. They gave the longitude coordinates right before he was shot, 116, which is like a 6/11 connection, right? And I've been talking about how the head wound and the nuke are correlated. Well, after he's shot at portal 116 in Stranger Things 4/8, the ground opens up, a crack opens up, and hellfire comes out, and it rains down like fallout. So it's like this earthquake in Hawkins, which I think represents Seattle. So you have a Seattle-like connection with a nuke blast following the Trump guy getting shot.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you know what I just heard? You know what it is? Why I don't elaborate on what you just said is because I didn't see it, what you were talking about. I mean, I heard what you said about the 116, but I didn't see that show, whatever that was you were saying. What was it again?
Stranger Things. And
yeah, I didn't see any of those episodes.
Yeah, and see, I watched it, and I didn't know at the time it was 4/8. But I was researching this character and the shooting scene. I was trying to find where they said I actually went to the script, and I was trying to find the 116 because I remembered it. And when I went to the script, that's when I found it was 4/8.
By the way, it's 6/11 right now where I'm at. But check this out. You know when we were talking about The Sopranos, and I was telling you about that the 84th episode had an Elvis connection. And
yes.
It was called the Second Coming. Okay. And I just found out another one. One of the viewers told me it was an episode which I had mentioned years ago, but I just didn't remember it. So one of the viewers told me it was called "He Is Risen." The episode, okay? Now, so the other one was called Second Coming, and there was an Elvis song played in that one, and there was some other connections. I forget what it was. I remember something about a drowning, somebody trying to kill themselves in water, and I told you Elvis equals water, but there was something else in that a Second Coming episode. It was the 84th episode. That's what was interesting with the 8-4 connection.
Okay, this is good. Yeah. Moved by
Okay,
W.B. Yeats's apocalyptic poem, The Second Coming. I remember this episode, and it says here, 84th episode in the series, Second Coming.
Yeah, but check this out. There was the 34th episode, season 3, episode 8, I think. It was called, I think it was the 34th episode, but I'm not sure. But it was called He Is Risen. And there was a mobster, I guess, I don't know if he was a Don or not, but that would be interesting if he was. He died on the toilet, and there was an Elvis impersonator in that episode.
Oh, that's wild. Okay, that's fascinating. 34th episode, He Is Risen, and there's somebody, that's the Elvis connection and dying on the toilet. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Memphis Mike or something.
Found it. Yep, it says here, dies of a heart attack while on the toilet at the crew hangout.
And Memphis Mike was in it also. And there was another connection. Man, I just can't remember what he said. There was another, I just can't remember it. Darn it. It's just funny that Elvis was in that one too. And it was called He Is Risen. The other one is The Second Coming, you know.
This reminds me, there was what was that movie with William Dafoe? Where he had a...
Oh, yeah. The
William
vampire
Dafoe
movie.
What was it called?
The Daybreakers.
Was that the one? Yeah, okay. I talk about Daybreakers a lot because it's like it all started with the bat, and it's got this vampire virus that takes over the whole world, and it's like the bat virus, right? And so we talked about this one already because it's copious predictive programming for 2020, but now I remember William Dafoe's character is the savior, and his name is Elvis. And he's got a car with a phoenix on it, and he basically looked at the sun, and there's like a lightning bolt symbol in this somewhere, and it restarts his heart, and then his blood is able to be used to save other people. But yeah, Elvis's blood saves the world in that movie.
Yes, that's why I did that video years ago. It's first of all, it's incredible because he meets up in a tree, like the serpent was, in Adam and Eve, it was like the serpent, and they always say the serpent was like in a tree, and they picture the serpent in a tree all the time for some reason. But so he jumps out of the tree, William Dafoe, to meet what's his name in that? Oh my goodness, what is the other guy's name in that? Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke was the guy. So William Dafoe meets Ethan Hawke, and he tells him his name is Elvis, and he was shaking hands with the devil, basically. That's what they were implying.
Let me add on to this then, because you mentioned this too. Daybreakers was released, had 2 different dates. It made it to the film festivals in Toronto on September the 11th, but it was released in the U.S. on January 8th, Elvis's birthday.
Yes, I mentioned that. Look how incredible that is, right? And what's his name's birthday is around there. Can you check his birthday real quick?
Yeah, let me check. I mean, William Dafoe's birthday is July 20th.
What?
Ethan Hawke. You mentioned Ethan Hawke too.
He's 11/6.
Ethan Hawke is big in Leave the World Behind, by the way.
Yeah, and Ethan Hawke was born on 11/6, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me take a look here. Ethan Hawke's birthday. Oh, somebody says here, they corrected me. It's not William Dafoe, it's Willem. See, if I was a Mandela affected, I would say there's no way I could be wrong. My memory is perfect. It's William. Reality changed. You're wrong.
It's Willem, yeah.
Yeah, you see here, November 6th, 11/6. That is Ethan Hawke's birthday.
Yeah, and when was Willem Dafoe? 7/22?
Yeah.
That's 6/11 backwards. That's its reverse date. 7/22's reverse date is 6/11.
Okay. 7/22 and 6/11 are perfectly related. I probably shouldn't divulge this. I probably shouldn't divulge this, but you care to guess when my birthday is?
I'm going to say 7/22.
11/6.
Oh, really? November 6th? Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I've always thought it
That's
was crazy.
crazy.
Having looked at this stuff, I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. But so I've looked at
Yeah,
that
that's
date, and it's
crazy.
but fascinating. Daybreakers, Elvis as Savior predicts 2020. The Elvis
Yeah,
birthday, like this is too much.
but let me go further on that Elvis thing. The one thing you missed is when how how Willem Dafoe realizes, who plays Elvis, how he realizes he is the cure is he crashes through the windshield of his car because because he was out in the light was getting him. He's like a vampire, so he was disoriented. He crashes and he's on fire as he's crashing through the windshield, and he falls into the water. Okay, and when he falls into the water, and he's rebirthed out of the sea. Because I'm telling everybody, Elvis is the beast out of the sea, and he gets rebirthed out of water, and Elvis equals water in gematria.
Oh,
Elvis equals reset.
okay, I found that scene here, and so it's kind of this baptism. It says William Defoe, yes, car crash sent him into the sun before he hit the water and was transformed back into a human. And you see him here as a burning man, which is a very interesting symbol in itself, tying to all of this stuff, like the burning man outside of the courthouse when Trump was on trial. And yeah, okay, I remember this scene, and he explains how it's like this baptism, and he ceases to become a vampire and he becomes the world's savior. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's what exactly what Elvis is. That's what the whole point is. This Elvis is after this June 11th event in Washington State, which is the Beast Out of the Sea event, the biblical Beast Out of the Sea. It is going to change the world because that's the only way that something could change the world, Tim. An earthquake is not going to change the world. A tsunami is not going to change the world. The only thing that could change the world is an actual nuke, because then everyone's going to say, "Oh, we can't ever do this again." Do you get
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yes. And let me, yeah, that's absolutely right. We're talking about changing the world and the beasts of the sea. I think also I brought this up. The Titanic references here. What sinks the Titanic? The beast from the sea, the destroyer, Apollyon, Abaddon, the challenger in the abyss. All these different themes have all tied into this beast from the sea, which is Godzilla, which came out last year at the same time as Oppenheimer, which is called the Destroyer of Worlds. Destroyer is Abaddon in English. And so Godzilla is also the nuke, and it's a beast from the sea. So you have this repeated theme here they've given us.
Yeah, we got to make sure we clarify. We don't believe in nukes. I'm saying that they planted explosives all under the city. Speaking of boring, the boring thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
They were boring. Isn't that the machine that was being used in Seattle? Was the boring machine?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken.
Like, so when we get in, this is an interesting part here because nukes may be fake in the way that they claim it works, but that doesn't mean that they can't simulate at a large scale anything really at this point. They can turn a closed movie set.
Well, that's what the Beirut explosion was. The Beirut, because that's where I was born, Beirut, Lebanon. That Beirut explosion on August 4th, 2020, that's exactly what it was. It was a test run to see how big it would look like just with the amount that they put. They used only 60,000 tons. 60,000 pounds or 60,000 tons. I don't remember what they said now, but of ammonium nitrate on that in that particular event, that explosive event. And where did they get it from? It was an abandoned ship. And I was talking about ships were going to be involved in this before that ever happened. But it wasn't on the ship. They took it off the ship and put it all into one warehouse. Can you imagine how stupid people have to be? They actually believe this. How are you going to be any kind of human being that you're going to store all 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate in one place? You know what I mean? Just in case it does explode.
Yeah, this is like a reference. We talk about the Burning Man, and I referenced Maxwell Israela, who burned outside the Trump trial, and how that was on the anniversary of Waco with the Burning Man, Dave Koresh, 33. His followers thought he was Jesus, but that event inspired Timothy McVeigh the 33-year-old who was electrocuted on 6/11/01, and he used fertilizer to blow up the Oklahoma City building. But in addition, it says here, the explosion in Beirut is considered the largest non-nuclear explosion in history.
That's what I always tell everyone, that it's the biggest explosion we've ever seen, and it happened in Beirut, where I was born, and it was August 4th, because I keep telling people that June 11th connects to August 4th. Do you remember I was telling you all those numbers connections? June 11th connects to August 4th for Satan. So that's why August 4th had to have an explosion also. Then next one is going to be June 11th. And you were speaking of Timothy McVeigh, and you remember you mentioned it many times. He got executed on 6/11, the same year 9/11 happened.
Yeah, Timothy McVeigh, 6/11's death is what clued me into what you were talking about, because the 6/11 date is like the domestic violent extremist version of a 9/11, and McVeigh's a very scripted character. He was inspired by the Turner Diaries, and the Turner Diaries, which has predictive programming for 9/11, was written by a guy, William Luther Pierce, who happened to have been born on 9/11, 1933.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yes, this is some fascinating info. I think there's something else too. Someone mentioned that Kurt Cobain died on 4/8. So you have another head wound thing.
Well, no, actually, he died on 4/5. They found his body on 4/8.
Okay.
See, it's connected to Trump. It's connected to Trump. That's why, because Trump is the 45, and he gets 48. He gets his head wound. Get it? 8/4. But and it's connected to Seattle, because he was in Washington State, but he was born, I think, in Seattle or something. I don't know. Kurt Cobain.
Now, one thing else too. You had told me the other day that we need to look at 8/17 for any predictive programming connected to 8/4, because of course it represents 8/4 in the Julian calendar. So you called it, and I didn't even know that was Robert De Niro's birthday. And on De Niro's birthday, when you called something would happen, he is definitely brought back into this picture with the death threats against Trump and jumping off a yacht, after mentioning Leonardo DiCaprio, a Titanic reference, after Trump plays the Titanic at his event. So you did say we're going to see some kind of marker, some event or predictive programming thing. Well, it's a viral event that Robert De Niro got kicked off of X for threatening Trump on that date. So you've been vindicated yet again in your assessments here.
And there's a connection to Trump, right? Because Trump was kicked off of X. I mean, Twitter, whatever the hell it was before X or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed. So, these high-profile Trump deranged syndromed actors are doubles for Trump, twins for Trump in different respects. That's why it's so intriguing to me that Alec Baldwin is a twin of Trump, shoots somebody, gets away with it like Trump said he could do, and then he gets out, he gets his trial dismissed at the same time Trump gets his trial dismissed. So you have this obvious, like, this mirroring. So now I'm looking at De Niro very closely. So De Niro getting kicked off of X and thrown off the Titanic. That's what we just saw. So it's Trump. Something's going to happen with Trump, and it's connected to the sinking of the Titanic, and it's connected to these very specific dates.
Wow, yeah. You mentioned, I want to bring up one thing. Speaking of because I'm going to talk about the guidestones today, again, that I've talked about, for a long time, and I connected it to that Baptist church thing. I mean, not the Baptist hospital demolition. The guidestones.
Yeah, the November 6th demolition.
Yeah, the Elvis's hospital where he was pronounced dead.
And for those who don't know, 11/6 is the date Gotham's underwater in the new Batman movie. It gets flooded.
Yeah. But I just want to clarify that my prediction is June 11th. That's just predictive programming, the 11/6 stuff. But
yeah, I'm with you on that. Everything makes sense. Yeah. Everything connected to the nuke and its proximity to the headshot, it has to be the 6/11, not the reverse. Although we do see these reverse dates figure. But go ahead.
Oh, and speaking of Willem Dafoe, he got his Hollywood star on January 8th.
Really? Okay. That, yeah. Now, William Dafoe, didn't he play Christ? Last Temptation of Christ?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Willem Dafoe, for those who are I will cease to mispronounce that one.
There was another connection too. He also played the Antichrist. I can't remember. I did a thing on it. I just don't remember what I said about it. But he definitely played.
He did.
The
He
Last
did.
Temptation.
Yeah, he played in this movie called The Antichrist by Jodorowsky. That's a really strange director. I think he even did Marilyn Manson's Wedding. But I never watched it. I had some friends who were really into this movie, Antichrist, starring William Dafoe. Very artsy, kind of grotesque. I may check it out just for the programming value, but yeah, there's the
Just
Antichrist.
let me say one last thing. Yeah, let me just end because I know people want me to get out. Listen, especially that one creature who loves me, that Diane. I don't know what her issue is with me. She must be obsessed with me. But listen, you were saying that the 9/11 is the Phoenix. I mean, had that Phoenix connection with the building. They were going to call it the Phoenix.
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that?
the One World Trade Tower, and Trump was part of this. They were going to replace the twins with a new one called the World Trade Center Phoenix, but they scrapped it. But yeah, that was part of it.
Yeah, so because I always tell everybody that Elvis is the Phoenix because he used to wear the Phoenix on his outfit, and all that stuff. I want you to take a look at this. Find out who was the company that demolished the Baptist Hospital, the Elvis Baptist Hospital. See if you can find that out.
Okay, it says here, Memphis Bioworks Foundation is talking about the demolition, and I'll see if I can find out who did it. 360 kilograms of explosives. It might be Memphis Bioworks Foundation.
You know what? I got a different one. See if you can. It was the controlled demolition of the Memphis Baptist Memorial Hospital Phoenix company. Can you see? Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm taking a look.
Can you do something with that?
Yeah, I'll do a search for that one. Okay. Okay. I see. That's not the name of the company that did it. So there's a Phoenix name in it.
I got Phoenix. That's why I was trying to figure out what other people got. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So the name of the hospital, for anyone who's looking, and we talked about this the other day because it looks so much like weirdly like the Georgia Guidestones, but it's called the Memphis Baptist Memorial Hospital. They say here it imploded. But let me see if I can find the code name here, or the company's name. And while I look this up, you said you're going to speak more about this today?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it again. Because I've done it before, but I'm just going to do a quick version of everything. Like, just say it instead of showing everything. Here
we go. The Phoenix, a Maryland-based company, will ignite the explosives on November the 6th. So the company is literally called the Phoenix, and the building was open, the facility was open for 88 years. That's interesting.
That crazy or what?
88 years, like 9/11 has the 88 lights, Heroes on Floor 88. A lot of 88 stuff connected to this, but this in itself is intriguing too. 88-year-old hospital taken down on 11/6 by a company called the Phoenix.
Yeah, that's unreal, right? Do you see how it's all connected, these people, man? Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for calling in. I appreciate you calling in and adding on to this Robert De Niro twist. Very interesting development. And tomorrow, Super Blue Moon, RNC. So stage is set. I think there could be something.
And by the way, I want everyone to know before I get off that I do not agree with maybe 25% of the things you say, Tim. But you know what I do? Because I don't want to. I don't need to start an argument with anyone as long as we're on the same boat and trying to wake people up and you're respectful to me and I'll be respectful to you. You get what I'm saying? Even though I don't agree with some of the things you say, you get what I'm saying? And even with things that like topics of, I don't want to get into it, but you get what I'm saying here? I just want people to know that I don't agree with 75% of the stuff, 25% of the stuff you say when it comes to certain people, especially when you talk about God and stuff. But I want you to understand the only reason, because I don't want people to think, because I want people to understand that why I don't bring it up is because I want to wake up as many people as possible. And I don't want to start an argument with everybody especially when you're not even trying to start an argument with me. Why would I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you on this, and I'm open up. My mind is open. I am assessing facts, and I'm not going to deny any truth presented to me. And so I'm not like I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to lead people away from anything. I'm merely pointing out what is, and I think we're on the same sheet with this, and we have been, and so it's fine with me. You know, we are all we're looking at the same stuff, and I appreciate you.
And I'm sure you
that.
don't agree with everything with me. I'm sure you don't agree with everything with I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So I just want people to understand that I'm not stupid. We all know that there are things you say that I don't agree with, and things I say you don't agree with. All right, man. Take care.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the call. Have a great day.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Infinite Plane Radio.
Samuel Smith is calling you from the Socorro County Jail. Press 1 to accept the call. Press 3 to decline. Call connected. This call is being recorded and has a maximum call length of 23 minutes and 2 seconds.
Hey, what's up, caller? How are you doing?
Okay. Yeah, I've been listening to you here. I'm about to get out of here soon, but I'm from Albuquerque. I lived there 7 years, and my name is Samuel.
Hey, thank you for calling, Samuel. Albuquerque is a great place, and if you're out by September 28th, you're welcome to join us for the Auto Hoax Con. What is the topic of your call?
I was definitely going to plan that. You said the local event is free?
Yeah, by all means. It's 9/28/2024 here at the IPS headquarters. It will be recorded professionally and live streamed, and there's a documentary being made. But yeah, it's open for Q&A, dialogue, debate, all of the above.
Oh, that's awesome, because I got some material to bring you. I have a manuscript that was handed to me 20 years ago. You might find interesting. So anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, but anyway, yeah, please. Anything else?
Yeah. So I want to touch base on a few things you were talking about and some of my own knowledge from years. I'm 52 years old now, so I've accumulated a lot of knowledge. So, as far as this just was mentioned recently about this Phoenix Demolition Company, there is a Phoenix Properties company that's very prevalent around there. I think in Albuquerque too, and they have the Phoenix symbol on their sign. I find it kind of symbolic. I don't know, but as far as this whole go into I know you've talked about some things about the carnal knowledge and carnivals and
yeah,
this whole circus theory and everything. And well, one unique thing about me is that when I was graduating in 1991, an older brother that was being recruited into what you call the company, or the CIA. Okay, so I've always called them the company because, well, as far as the three-letter acronym, well, right there you have the three-ring circus, So the three-ring circus and the carnivals all being related as a method of deception. You have one thing going on here, another thing going on there, and another thing going on somewhere else. You have this whole concept of juggalo justice, and how they have their own government, and how they're run, as far as when Barnum Bailey. I used to go to some circuses when I was younger.
P.T. Barnum and Bailey. There's a sucker born every moment. Interestingly, I have a book called The Company, a novel of the CIA by Robert Little, and the O is a keyhole, and it has Alice from Alice in Wonderland right there. But this circus thing that you brought up, I brought it up because we were talking about like how the Church of Satan founder was a big fan of P.T. Barnum, and he said that you might consider this realm to be the realm of the carnival. Carny means flesh, and this is a realm of deception, and it's run by carnies, and it's a big show.
Yes, that would be the DMC, the Divine Masters Church, another three-letter acronym. You have what you mentioned about how people popping up all the time. You get rid of one, you have another troll coming around. It's like the carny game, whack-a-mole. You knock one down, and you got another one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good analogy to use anyway. The whole carnival analogy makes sense on so many levels, because there's this really good book called Carnival Undercover, and it shows how there is a tradition of tricking people, deceiving people, making them into suckers, and that's always been the thing. It's like a magic show that you're involved in.
Yes, and I was out at a cultural center. I can't remember, but it's out by the Salt Lake, the tribal area out by Mountain Air. It's the old Salt Lake or the Salt Flats or something like that. And, I was at the Native Cultural Center, and I couldn't find any more information, like online about it. But when I was there, it goes into their whole spiritual belief of how the world was created, and it relates to their pottery too, and how the world was like to them in the concept of a bowl, and at the edge were the gods, which were dressed as clowns, which are the Kachina dolls, and they were the clown gods, and it's the whole motley concept of it, and it's very strange if you get out to that cultural center and find that bit of information.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the Kachina clown. I've always wanted to buy one of these. I've seen them at various places here, but the archetype, the divine trickster, the Joker, the Fool, these are all kind of analogous symbols, but trickery is a huge part of this realm. Loki, a trickster. Trickster gods, Coyote is a local one, it's a trickster god. And trickster gods are very popular in magic. And magic is about what? Trick in the eyes. Or sleight of mind. It's trickery, essentially.
As you say, trained to believe, as the animals are trained to do what they are, told to do. Yeah, I've been writing a lot down.
Yep. Well, good. I look forward to, well, hopefully, if you can make it. Again, it'll be 9/28. I'm going to keep advertising it here in Albuquerque. It's going to be a local event. And my objective here is to get the people who are on this side of the screen to create an above ground network, which I'm calling the IPR Press Club. And we're all just observers in this.
Yes.
But we collaborate and we put together this multi-million piece puzzle. You're taking notes. I always take notes when I listen to others, and JL calls in. And I'm mind mapping the hell out of this stuff. And I have one on the screen here. I spent 2 hours trying to record a podcast on this subject. And I'm like, this is too much. I'm going to have to do this live and get everyone else's input anyway. But we are looking at this from the right perspective, and that's what it's really about.
As you describe as like the luge being, they're taking your luge and stuff. Those are the psychic vampires, as I'm aware of, that I've always known. I lived about 5 years in Truth or Consequences, and you might want to, if you know anything about that town, well, it's a literal vampire town. People will get stuck down there by accident or whatever. But I lived down there for quite some time. I'm trying to get myself out of there, but I've just been random things I've been picking up here, is like Doja Cat and all that. Backwards is Azud, and I think that's one of the deities in the Necronomicon. I think is Azud.
Yeah, that's right. And Truth or Consequences, by the way, is mentioned in the King Kill 33 book, which is the breakdown of the JFK assassination. And he mentions it because it's on the 33rd degree parallel. And, he mentions that and the Trinity site where the nuke happened. But in his King Kill 33 breakdown of the symbolism leading to the Kennedy assassination, Truth or Consequences actually plays a role in it for some reason. And so I'm going to revisit that, and probably by next time I'll have some info on that.
Oh yeah, I have a lot going on that happened down there. Being chased by black trucks by the spaceport, and you name it. I won't even go into that, but I will definitely try to check you out up there. The 22nd, you said, right?
28th, actually. 28th. It'll be Saturday, the 28th of September. And
excellent.
It's going to start at about noon. I'm going to have some people speaking remotely. I'm going to try to bring some people in. I'll be picking some people to invite. And then it'll also be open to people local. So it'll be great to have somebody here because I'll be doing a live Q&A and just more interactivity.
Okay. Well, I can't find anything else I wrote down right now. I don't want to be flipping through here, but I'll let you go with the rest of your night. Samuel Lionstar, and I got a double album.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll take a look at it. Samuel Lionstar. Okay, I think I might have found you. I'll take a look here.
Oh, yeah, it's instrumental synth.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to find it and I'll put it in the show notes. Thanks for calling, and call back anytime.
I will do that.
Awesome.
Have a good one.
Likewise. All right, great. Another first-time caller, Samuel Lionstar, who may be here at AutoHoaxCon #1, and that's going to be on September the 28th. Here, I found some content from this individual. Okay, good. Easy to find. Excellent. Thank you for calling again. Exploring says, does the caller need bail money? Well, we're not charging for the live event in person, but only for remote. Okay, we have a good number of people here, by the way. The numbers are just climbing. We have 103 on the main channel, 56 on the backup. We have 15 on Twitch, and that's normally much higher. But anyway, we're getting close to the 300, which is kind of my goal. So if you want to get live stream notifications, go to ips.monster. Make sure you don't miss any of those. And I started off today talking about the significance of Robert De Niro making threats against Trump, getting kicked off of X, and how obviously these Trump deranged actors, De Niro and Baldwin, are part of this bigger script, and they're conveying various elements of the bigger story through their world stage and movie stage roles. All very fascinating. And then the strange connection here between the Titanic, Trump, De Niro, and jumping off his yacht. All very interesting again. JL called in to say the second coming is the 84th episode of the HBO series The Sopranos. The 34th is called He Is Risen. Has an Elvis song and somebody dies on a toilet. We talked about Elvis in Daybreakers as the world's savior. And the World Trade Center Phoenix was originally going to be the new Twin Towers. But then it became the One World Trade Tower. So the alchemical conspiracy, the death of the West, this is what I'm talking about with King Kill 33, James Shelby Downard, who maintains that we are witnessing, through PSYOPs, the power elite seizing control of what he calls the dreaming mind, which is true. That's what predictive programming is for. They are quite literally soaking your subconscious with images and themes and characters in order to influence, not only through post-hypnotic suggestion, but also in order to influence how you interpret what's on the news. Okay, here we go. A key city in all three scenarios. So this is it. This is the alchemical conspiracy and the death of the West is talking about three events that would be required to affect this phenomenon, this death of the West. One of the events was the Kennedy assassination, one is the moon landing, and one is the atomic bomb. He said these three things dragged us into the world stage. And I've been saying that for some time too. The atomic bomb, the psyop of the moon landing, these dragged us into the movie. But he says here, a key in all three scenarios was Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And in the brilliant wordplay of the Masonic Dr. Syntax, we come to the current unfoldment in the alchemical term, revelation of the method. Let me see if I can find some more information about this Truth or Consequences. He mentions Truth or Consequences in this breakdown, as well as the Trinity site. But the article is called King Kill 33, Masonic Symbolism in the Assassination of JFK. This is a fascinating article. I consider this to be the prototype for Metascript breakdown. This is probably the first time it was really done. And he was looking at the locations. The motorcade went from Love Field to Dealey Plaza, 10 miles south of the 33rd degree latitude. It says the 33rd degree is the highest in Freemasonry. The founding lodge is in Charleston, South Carolina, exactly on the 33rd. But what he focuses on is the geography as well as the other stuff. Like Oswald. He says Oswald means divine strength. And he says here, note the significance of Jack Ruby killing Oswald in reference to the ruby slippers and the Wizard of Oz. There's some Wizard of Oz stuff in here. There's some stuff from Macbeth. But yeah, as the caller brought up, that strangely named place of Truth or Consequences, and it does have some significance. I didn't know, I mean, I kind of read it before, I forgot about it being on the 33rd parallel, but I didn't know it was close to Spaceport. Spaceport, America's first purpose-built spaceport, the gateway to space. Truth or Consequences, 33rd degree. Interesting. And by the way, if you want to exit this realm, exit the material realm, you have to go Mach 33. That is the escape velocity. 33 times the speed of sound, Mach 33. Cobain shot himself in Seattle on 4/8, says Ryler. Another good addition. As you said, as Garrow said, he shot himself on 4/5, but he's found on 4/8. So the 4/8 connection and Seattle. So that's another example of the correlation between these two events. Just like the 42 miles separating Palestine, Ohio and Butler, the head wound and the nuke, or 4/8, episode 4/8 in Stranger Things. He's at portal 116, which is like 611, Trump's shot at 611, and after Matthew Modine, Joker, JFK is shot, then Hawkins gets the nuke, symbolically. Okay, I think we've covered quite a lot here. I have to probably finish yesterday's archives, and I'm working on a few orders I'm processing. So if you're waiting for something, I'll be contacting you. If you send me emails, I will be in touch. And we are, at this point, working on bringing the IPR Press Club to the surface. And so the AutoHoax Con is really when we're going to move that forward. So we're going to be involved in this on a much deeper level. Not just on the web where they can scrub us, censor us, defund us. We don't need to breathe their air. We have our own. We have our own ecosystem here that we're growing, and it's going to be filled up with like-minded individuals who may not agree. We don't have to agree on 100%. We just have to agree on our operating system, that we all know that we're looking at a world of lies, and we're scratching the surface, we're digging deep, and we're not accepting any guardrailed misinformation lies. Pure skepticism, an objective analysis of a subjective world, and we are getting answers. We are getting closer to, I'm not saying the truth, but we are getting truthier as we go. I'm not prepared to say that we have all the answers, but we have the right operating system to get there. So thank you all for joining. This is Chief Crow, AutoHoax, or GTFO. I'm going to send out archives and everything else in the emails. Means twin. So the twin cruise or twin cross is a reference, in my view, to the double cross, which refers to the resurrection. You have the first rung, which is death, and the second one is the resurrection. So this is an important symbol